Hello, everyone. It is I. Do not adjust your streaming screens because you are having a crisis. It is me, Crisis, live from New Zealand. And I am here to talk to you about last week's comics polls. And there weren't as many as there have been in typical recent weeks, so we might just fly through this today. But as we know, before I fly through the polls, we fly through my top comics of the year. So let's start talking about that because I have my top 12 comic series of 2025 so far. Let's see. I can't seem to get on the correct side of the camera here. Okay, let's, there we go. All right, so let's get right into it, shall we? Here are my top series so far. At number 12, a new combatant has entered the ring, the Green Lantern ring, because it is the Green Lantern Corps, which I'm really enjoying and we're going to get to talk about today. Next, we have Batman and Detective Comics by Taylor and Yanin, which I really love, not out from this week. Ghost Box at number 10, which has a final issue out in a couple of weeks. At number 9, another new entry into the top 12. What is happening? This is Jump Scare by Colin Bunn, Danny Luckert, and Jim Campbell. If you've been watching regularly, you remember I love the number 1 and the number 2 is out this week. We'll get to talk about it later. But what's this? A third new entrant has hit the top 12. It is Doctor Strange of Asgard. Number 2 is out this week, and I have a lot to say about it when we get there. Then we have some familiar faces, the Tin Can Society, then Absolute Superman, Kieran Gillen and Caspar Wingard's The Power Fantasy, The Avengers by McKay and Karami, and then our top 3, a little bit of a tweak here. Number 3, Nice House by the Sea. Number 2, Batman Dark Patterns, which we'll talk about today. And still number 1, of course, FML by Kelly Sue DeConnick, David Lopez, Chris Peter, and Clayton Cowles. Did you notice that one of our top 12 mainstays has disappeared? We will talk about that in just a little bit, or actually a lot of bit, because it's towards the end of the alphabet. There's your hint. But wait, we're not done, because now we talk about the picks of the week. What did I think was going to be the comic that I would like most of the week when I write all of my new releases posts on crushingcrisis.com? And then what wound up actually being my pick of the week after I did all of my reading. Let's go. So for DC, last week, I thought Green Lantern Corps would be my pick of the week. And I loved this comic a lot. I mean, it got it into my top 12, so clearly I loved it. But Batman Dark Patterns, it was so good. It continues to be so good. It's wonderful. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, Marvel. Previewing the picks of the week, I was not excited about any superhero comics this week. So I said Star Wars Jedi Knights because the first issue was amazing. I did like this. We're going to talk about it later, but Doctor Strange of Asgard, except for this horrific cover, which I couldn't even put it in the top 12. It's so ugly. But I do really love this series, and I think the execution was so high. So that was my pick of the week. At Image, I thought my pick of the week would be G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero by Danny and Dan Waters, A Silent Mission for Jinx. Image was pretty slim pickings this week, so this was actually my pick of the week, even though it was not like a perfect 5. Indie pick of the week, I thought it would be the Great British Bump Off Kill or Be Quilts, because I love John Allison, who you may know from Giant Days, along with artist Max Sarin. But actually, my pick of the week, I kind of forgot how much I loved the first issue until I read the second issue, was Jump Scare. Okay, so let me just remind you, whether you are a returning crusher or a new watcher, which we really appreciate here, hello, let me just remind you of what happens here. So I'm Crisis. I run the site crushingcrisis.com, which many of you have encountered on a Google search here and there when you're looking for comic reading orders or comic collecting guides. But I also, in order to keep up with all those guides, I read a lot of comics. In fact, I read right now all of the new comics from DC and Marvel, many from Image, and a lot of indie comics as well. So on this show, I talk about my reactions to all of them. And I don't know if there's anyone else who is reacting to every comic on the direct market. If they are, send them my way. And also, do they have hair as good as this, and do they scream as much as I do? Those are the key questions. So we're going to get to that. But before we get to that, we do 3 other things. I greet the chat, which I'm about to do. Then we have a little moment of crisis, which I do not know what is going to be today. And then we do a little bit of AMA and back and forth with the chat. And then we get into all the comics. So let me greet the chat, shall we? Oh my gosh, you've made 46 comments already. Okay, let's see. Bunk, we must acknowledge, always gets here with the first comment. He's lying in wait early in the morning, because I put this up, I think now for US Eastern time. This goes up at like I can't do math. 4 in the morning and Bunk is still first. Okay. Raptor Rancher asking if I'm a fan of The Cure. Not historically a huge fan of The Cure, but I know The Cure, of course. But their last record was amazing. The production was so good that I cried. Not at the content of the songs, but that they sounded so gorgeous. So I always give everything a chance, even if I'm not a committed fan. And that one blew me away. Steve Patterson saying, good evening, Crushers. You know, I've been thinking about the whole Crushers thing, and I think I do like it because it's like crushing Krisis, so you're kind of like part of the club, but then your Crushers like, right? Because we're very masculine here. Oh, women can crush. Everybody can crush. We're very powerful here. And but then also it's like people who crush on things, which is kind of what crushing Krisis. It wasn't about a crushing Krisis. That was the double entendre. The crush was me being obsessed with everything. So I kind of like the multiple entendre of crushers. We might stop workshopping. We may have landed on a name. John Paul's hello, asking if I like guac. Yes, and I like to make fresh guac myself. Thank you very much. Edwin Billiat saying, can't wait for another great... Well, actually, I can't wait for one either. Hopefully I have one today. You never know until it actually happens. Matt H, looking forward to the stream. Always great to see you in the comments. Matt, a fifth of Jack Gaming. Heck yeah. Hello, Crisis in chat. Gonna listen to Crisis while I tackle this cleaning crisis. Yeah, I got some cleaning crises to do this week. The bookshelves are in disarray because what happens is I just take things off of them to like show you, and or especially when I'm on Omni Dog's Vault or when I'm on near mint condition. But then what happens is we start accumulating piles of things that are not well organized, and then there's like dust jackets off of books and they're getting crushed, and it's like, oh no. So I need to just have a cleaning crisis here on the shelves. Stoop saying, yeah, good stuff. Super Jop, a regular who now has a profile picture, so we know that there's a real human behind it, and it's not just a very witty chatbot saying hello. Ryan Bragg. Super Jop has been reading all of Daredevil, and they are now up to Charles Soule's run, which began at the end of 2015 in all new art different Marvel. I love spoilers, Charles Soule's. I mean, not spoilers to the book, just spoilers that I love it. And he, or they, I think he says that that means they read 3 of the worst issues of a comic of all time, which was the Shadowland Moon Knight tie-ins. I don't even recall. I'd have to go back to my spreadsheet. Logan Wayne, another regular. Good morning to the one and only diva of comics YouTube. Crisis, and good afternoon, evening to all of the beautiful nerds out there. James Abel is here. Nick N is here. Eric Garza. Don't make me continue to read this current Daredevil run. Yeah, we'll be talking about that later today. Sean from the Comics Pals, who I got to chat a little bit with this weekend on the Comics Pals Discord. It turns out that their reader poll did not choose Doomsday Clock for their Geoff John book club, so I will not get to talk about my deep hatred and perhaps reevaluate my deep hatred for Geoff John's Doomsday Clock on Comics Pals, but Sean and I will find some way to talk about it sometime. Nick N has been reading through all the current X books and can accurately say it's all money. Money. I don't even know what that means. No, I do, and I mostly agree. Let's see, is anybody else? Kane is here. Hello, Kane. Cyril is here. Hello to you. And have I talked to all of the unique human beings? No, because everybody's favorite Welsh lobster is here. Elon Reese and Omnibo, for whom it is 6:20 in the morning right now, I believe, in Australia. Hello to my mate in Australia, says Murph. Hi to you. Lance McNair, we really can't have a stream unless Lance shows up at least a little bit. Pity Ma. Rexmo, lot of very familiar and very welcome faces here. Javier Hernandez, Elon Rees saying John Allison is fantastic. I've been reading John Allison for over 25 years now because I am old. And I think, Patrick Borgeld, hello to you, friend. Jeremy Kulaw, nobody has better hair. I think the hair did well today. I was nervous when I first unfurled it because it was not giving an indication of what was going to happen. But sometimes it just needs it's like a Christmas tree. Like when you take the Christmas tree out of the net and you're like, I don't know how it's going to settle. And then you like let it and then all the leaves fall. That's kind of what happens with my hair. And James, the Media Mancer, is here. Hello to you. Lance McNair's Crushers it is. Yeah, I think it's going to stick. Jean-Remy Argueta, quick pop in to say hello. And I know Jean-Remy will watch the rest at some later point this week. Patrick Borgeld bought his first DC Finest. I've got a whole pile of them just off camera. I'm going to say hello to like 2 more people. And then we got to get to Moment of Krisis. One, Wheelchair X, who managed to join at the beginning of the stream. He's been very busy because he just posted a build of the X-Men Lego Mansion on his channel, which I have in this house as well, because Kid Crisis did it over the holidays. It is a pretty cool Lego because it's kind of like one of the city Legos with like the things that lift on and off, so you can see like the interior floors of it. But if you've never seen it, go to One Wheelchair X's channel and watch him put together. And he is in the Friends of Crushing Crisis channel strip on my channel. Okay, and of course, Max is here. He has put up a new Beetlebop that though I am a Beetlebop faithful, have not listened to yet. I did hear his rough draft of it though, and it's got this really cool contrapuntal motion if he did it the way we talked about it. And it is a song I guarantee you know. It is Yesterday by the Beatles. So please go subscribe to Max. He plays so much good guitar stuff. We got to twist his arm and get him to do some modern stuff when he's tires of this Beetlebots. I want to hear Max do some Dochi. I want to hear Max do some Chapel Roan. So maybe like a Gaga marathon. So we'll keep working on Max, but of course we do love the Beatles. Just another few quick hellos. Ryan Wilson, hello to you. Neil Pereira, hello to you. And Jewish Dragons, and Michael Weslius. Oh my God, and who bought Batman Dark Patterns. I've yet to see somebody not enjoying Batman Dark Patterns. I just haven't seen it. All right, I'm going to star that comment and hide. I'm overwhelmed. I also see Cruel Angel in there. I didn't get to say hello to you, but hello to you, Cruel Angel. Because we got to talk about A Moment of Krisis, which, per usual, I am not 100% sure of what it is going to be. But you know me, I start talking, then I keep talking, and then it turns out we've had a moment of crisis. Okay. Oh, you know how I always say how I really like pink on a comic book cover? Like I see a comic, there's one this week, the Transformers cover. So pink. Love it. Back in the day, Marvel and DC had a very good sense of what things on a cover would sell off of the newsstand, right? Because they had signals from the newsstand, and we'll get into why. And so they knew certain colors sold more, certain characters on the cover sold more. They had basically instant market research, and we'll talk about why. And today, when I look at the constant failure of some of these companies to understand what the market desires, both out of a cover and out of a comic book series, I really wonder, have they lost the ability to really have that fine-grained market research? And I don't know, because I don't work in any of those companies, but boy, do I love data analytics and would I like to. But let's talk about why they used to know and maybe why they don't know as much anymore, even though you would think in a modern digital age they would. Back when comic books used to be on the newsstand, which represents a lot of things. There were literal newsstands, all you youths. That was a thing. But there were also, bookstores with spinner racks, gas stations, toy stores, basically anywhere that just was ordering comic books in bulk from Marvel and DC, primarily some other publishers. Those comics often had what was called returnability, which meant that they would sell as many as they could sell, and then they would send them back. And this is not that radical in printed media or any kind of physical media. There's a lot of kinds of physical media where to incent the stores to stock enough of the physical media to try to sell it, they will get returnability on that media so they can stock a whole lot of it. And if they don't sell all of it, they can sometimes send it back or give it back to the distributor or to the originating company, right? But the whole point of the direct market when it launched was that Marvel and DC didn't want to worry about returnability as much. They just wanted comic shops that knew what they were getting in terms of product and had a reason to hang on to the extras because they would be back issues. So there's a whole lot of research there, which I frankly have not done because this is extemporaneous. That's as much as I know coming into this. But here's the thing. Because of the returnability, Marvel and DC would get a sense of what series were selling through, meaning selling through like all the copies that were out there, because things that got ordered in a large amount, but then everything came back, were not selling through. Things that got ordered a ton and things were not getting returned were selling through, no matter how much the original print was. And so they would know either to bump up the print run to make more like that. That's how they started figuring out what colors of books sold more from the newsstand, because we're not talking about the comic faithful here. We're just talking about people who show up and buy things. And they also got a sense of like certain characters. That's how we got the idea of Wolverine being on covers sold more, right? Because they had this data. But the direct market started really creating demand too in the 90s with all the variants and things which weren't given to the newsstands. They were direct market exclusive. So that starts to like break down the idea of data, because Marvel and DC start to care more about what the direct market will just order more of. So of course, if you give the direct market 5 alternate covers, the direct market will order more of the 5 alternate covers because there's a collectability thing there, and the newsstands just get the one and they don't know any better. And by the way, that started with Spider-Man #1 in 1990. That I do know off the top of my head. But now let's fast forward to today. Newsstand sales for comics do not exist. They just don't. And anytime that one of the comic companies tries that kind of thing, like those giant DC giants in Walmart, they have to deal with the idea of returnability because places like that expect returnability, right? So now we have people who are just selling comics to the direct market, and we see these huge numbers, like such and such a comic shipped 100,000 copies, right? But what does that mean now? Because in a world with no returnability, Marvel's like, well, we printed 100,000, it was a hit, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it was a hit. They might have printed 100,000 and shops didn't sell through them. They might have printed 100,000 and there's a glut of them on the back issue market. How will they receive a signal that that 100,000 didn't land well, right? That people weren't actually buying it? Well, the only signal they can get now is if pre-orders continue to drop on the series. So, and they won't see that until issue 4 because that's how the direct market works with pre-orders. So shops need enough time to see that the issue 1 doesn't sell through and then change their orders on a future issue, like issue 4 or possibly issue 5. But the commensurate is true as well. What if there's a pretty minor sideline comic that Marvel ships and it is a huge blast and it immediately sells out and the shops want more of it? How does Marvel get signaled that? Well, the way that Marvel gets signaled that is that shops are putting in orders for the comic and there's no more left to order at the distributor level, which triggers Marvel perhaps to make a reprint. But again, how fast does that happen? And how do they know how that reprint does? It's based on how many of the reprints get ordered, right? So there's a huge anticipatory quality to understanding what is selling now, because Marvel and DC have to just guess based on sales signals a lot of time. Now, they do get direct signals from digital, which is funny because we're always saying digital doesn't represent the market. Digital is only 10%. Yeah, but it's 10% where they immediately get feedback about what's selling in proportion to other things in that given week. I would love to hear them talk more about that. The reason I bring this up is I was a Marvel zombie and still am. I mean, we are reading all but 4 Marvel books right now. And in my Marvel zombiedom, I was picking up every single Marvel trade paperback from 2010 to 2015. And I really started hating a lot of the line. And I asked myself, is Marvel getting any signal from me? They don't know. All they know is I'm buying one of every trade paperback. If I buy one of every one, there's no negative signal. There's only a positive signal. But it's the same way with me buying all of the Marvel single issues right now. They don't get any negative signal that there's something I'm not picking up in singles. They're just getting positive signals of my sale. And they don't care if I rate it 1 star in League of Comic Geeks or on Amazon or on Comic Book Roundup. They don't care. They just care that they sold the thing. And I think that that's part of the problem right now, and we see especially Marvel. I hate to pick on them, but I love to pick on them because they make such questionable decisions compared to DC, because Marvel is just pushing out things that like nobody asked for and it doesn't seem like anybody wants. Why? Because they are really looking at that number 1 pre-order sale and they're immediately making decisions based on that number 1. Like if the number 1 gets a lot of pre-orders, they're like, great, we're going to extend it. Or like, great, you're probably going to get to 2 arcs. But the number 1s, as we've just proven, have nothing to do with anything. Shops just go in on what they think they can sell off the shelf. It's really like the issue number 4 number that matters. So on one side, it's kind of cool that Marvel has started saying, yeah, we're going to let things run to 10 issues, because by issue 10, that order number has certainly stabilized and Marvel can tell if it's like at the survivability threshold or not. And we saw many books just now that are not. In the past couple of years, there was a Deadpool run, a Captain Marvel run that ended at 10. We just saw X Factor, NYX, and X-Force are ending at 10, but Phoenix, for some reason, unbeknownst to me, because it is horrible, is continuing past issue 10. So that Phoenix must be skating above that threshold level. But I just think about this a lot because I just think that Marvel and DC, I wonder if there's people internally who understand what sells off the shelf, both from a book perspective and from like a what kind of covers sell from the previous catalog and from the shelf. And I wonder if those messages are making their way down to editorial and influencing the cover decisions, the guest star decisions, or not. Because right now it just feels like a random slurry of things. And also it feels like for us as fans, we don't have any way to send a signal. Like I'm just one person, so I can stop reading Phoenix, I guess, and they'll get one less digital sale, but like that does nothing really. Or I could get on here and scream about Phoenix once a month. That also does nothing. The only thing that really sends a signal to Marvel is like fans en masse stopping being interested in buying that thing. And that's why we can see things like Zebul's Spider-Man go on and on and on, which I liked just fine, but people were buying it to hate read it. And so Marvel was getting plenty of signals that it was going fine for a really long time. So I don't really have a final thesis to this other than to say, and I thought of this great analogy actually while I've been talking, and this is what we'll close with, the thing I maybe should have opened with. Imagine you sell pool noodles. Your company makes pool noodles, the little floaty pool noodles, right? And you sell them to a store, but you always sell them a color assortment and you don't have returnability on that. The store just gets what they get. And the stores are ordering less and less Pools Noodles as the season goes on. And you're thinking, wow, I guess people late in the season don't keep buying pool noodles. And what you don't know is it's just that your orange pool noodle is not that attractive. And from the store's perspective, they have a glut of 20 orange pool noodles left over after all the pinks and the blues and the purples and the reds sell. And they're like, well, we're not going to order more, but we have 20 orange ones. But then the orange ones stop selling. And there's no communication between the store, who's like, we've still got 20 orange pool noodles we can't sell, and the pool noodle company, who needs to understand to take orange out of the color assortment, or at least lessen its frequency in the color assortment. And until somebody from the pool noodle company goes to the store and sees the glut of orange pool noodles, they will never know. And every year they will keep putting out an assortment that includes orange. They will keep not selling as the season goes on, because the stores will keep having a glut of orange pool noodles. And that's what Marvel Comics, to me, feels like right now, a bunch of orange pool noodles. So that was my moment of crisis. I tell you, don't plan them. You might not believe me, but it's true. And now let's go through and look at some more comments, because, oh my gosh, people just kept commenting, which is good. We encourage that. But, oh my gosh. Yeah. So let's just talk to some people. We will try to wrap up in about 6 minutes, and then we will get to the comic books. Lance Benier says, a non-comic reading, I just finished book 6 of Wheel of Time. I remember seeing Wheel of Time, and I liked big books, I cannot lie, on the end caps of Borders back in the day, and just being like, do I really want to get into that? And I have so many friends who love it. Maybe one day, but I just, I don't read a lot of prose, as we've established. My favorite prose series, since nobody asked, is by Stephen Brust. I love Stephen Brust. He's a fantasy author. He's incredible. It's called the Vlad Talto series, or the Jerheg series, which is about this assassin human being who's in this place where basically there's elves. They're called Dragarians, but they're basically just elves. And there's 17 houses of elves, and there's also humans who are thought of lesser than. And it details his, rise as an assassin and the way he shakes the order of the whole world. There's like 18 of them. We're almost to the end of 18. I've been reading them since the 80s. So it's pretty impressive that we're almost to the end. Okay. Let's see what else. On one of Riley's older videos on my recommended to watch list, he talks about my website for comic reading orders. Had to share that with you. Already shared with Riley. Well, of course, Riley and I have known each other for a really long time. Riley has this Facebook group, although he's kind of like a parent in absentia, as am I of it at this point. So I used to be an admin. Actually, probably still says that I'm an admin. And Riley and I kind of knew each other from like CBR forums and things like that. But then I joined his group, and I was a member of his group for many years, and still am, but I'm actually locked out of Facebook right now, so I couldn't even tell you what's going on there. And so we've always referred to each other, and we're friends, and we back channel with each other. And Riley was probably the first friend that I made that had their own comics like site or thing that they were doing other than me. All right, let's keep scrolling down for some new comments. Oh, Larry is here, and I miss saying hello to Larry. Boo. Also, I miss saying hello to Elmas. Hello to you. There is Larry's library. But you all are being so effusively wonderful in the comments that I'm having a hard time keeping up, which is, I suppose, a price of success. One Wheelchair X building the Lego X Mansion. There it is in the comments. Noah Horn saying hello, but I'm just trying to see. Oh, I guess I should put up the banner, because we're in a total lack of structure right now. Where's the darn banner? Oh, ask me anything. You can ask me anything for just a few more minutes. Sean from the Comics Pal saying, it's important to say that when those books were being returned to the publisher wasn't making any money on that returned copy. So if DC received 50% of their Superman copies back, they would lose 50% of the sales on that book. And that's a huge point. At the time, the risk to a publisher for doing a 100,000 print run, although at the time it was closer to 1 million, the risk was on the publisher to do the 100,000 print run, because the 100,000 print run would get ordered by shops or by newsstands. And then if it didn't sell, and DC or Marvel would be out the money. Now they announced the print run, but it's very closely tied to the amount of pre-orders they get. And if the shops wind up with a glut of copies, the shops just wind up with a glut of copies. So if the shops order big on the new Amazing Spider-Man, thinking it's going to be huge, and then fans have Spider-Man fatigue and they don't actually buy the copies, Marvel doesn't care, because the shops have got the stock at that point. John Pearl says, when I got into comics, Lock and Key and Saga were creator-owned books that really pulled in newcomers. What do we think today's creator-owned books that do this? Well, I've actually been thinking about this a lot, and maybe it's been in my head as a potential moment of crisis. I feel like we kind of don't have any one big heavyweight an indie the way we did for Lock and Key and with Saga about 10 or even 12 years ago. I think what we have now is certain creators who are people know they can really rely on as a brand, but I think it's harder for individuals who are not part of the comic industry to understand that, because it's harder to hone in on a creator name than just one book like Saga, right? So I think Tinian is that. I think people, I think at this point, there's enough people who've read a Tinian book and who understand they can keep reading Tinian books. I think Rick Remender has kind of like hit that recently. I think Geoff Johns is trying to do that with Ghost Machine. So if I had to trend alert, talk about a trend, I would maybe talk about the rise of creator imprints, which we really didn't have as much of in the time that you're talking about with Lock and Key and Saga. It really feels like that's what the hot thing is now, rather than a book. Of course, Invincible's hot, but Invincible started coming out in 2003. So we're not talking about a new comic book there. It's just hot because the TV series is hot. Same with The Boys, right? So I don't know if those creator brands really reach outside of the comic book market. I am surrounded just by comic book people. And so, I mean, I just introduced somebody to Saga for the first time a couple weeks ago. So we have to remember that things that are breaking news to us in terms of solicits and new #1s, they don't reach the common non-comic book consuming person for sometimes months or years. After that, Bunk is disappearing. He will be back later. Maybe we won't actually be streaming that long today. It's not a very big pull list. Last G's here and also bought the hardcover of Lemire's Fish Flies. Very interesting. I don't really know anything about that. Because I'm not a huge Lemire fan. So I've stopped keeping up with Lemire. Eventually I'll make a guide to Lemire, and perhaps then I will have to get to know all of his books all over again. Logan Wade, were Marvel fans called Marvel Zombies before the actual Marvel Zombies comic? Yes. Marvel Zombies. So there were like Wednesday Warriors or whatever. I think books used to come out on a Friday at one point, right? I'm just reaching around to get my water here. There were Wednesday Warriors or Friday Warriors, and then the people who like pretty much bought every Marvel were Marvel Zombies. And I want to say that was like a bullpen term even in like the 70s and 80s. Don't quote me. There's never any research that happens, unlike my guides, which are incredibly well researched. There's no research whatsoever here. Okay. Favorite Bat family members. I mean, I kind of love all the Batgirls, but I like a lot of the Robins too. I've grown to love Damian when he's written correctly. I really like Tim Drake. I really like all the Robins and Batgirls, honestly. And of course, Batwoman. And I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, I really liked Ghostmaker, just because anytime we have like a funny bisexual rich person, I usually really like that character. So I like Phantom X, I like Daken, and especially in showing him as a former equal of Batman's who now has kind of all grown up and it acts as a little bit of a foil to Batman. I really love that. So if I had to say top three, I would say Batwoman, Tim Drake. Oh, or do I say Damian? Batwoman, Damian, Ghostmaker, honorable mention, Tim Drake and Cassandra Cain. That's just my answer for today. Could always change. Okay. Let's see. Is the classic X Factor worth a read on a proper classic X-Men hype following my read of Uncanny Omni 3? It depends on how invested you are in Jean coming back, Noah, because not that X Factor is only about that. I think it's really interesting because X Factor leans into the whole "are mutants hated and feared" thing a lot more than Claremont deals with it. Claremont deals with it a little bit in the late 180s and early 190s, and then the X-Men are very insular and it's dealing with mutant on mutant crime, really, in terms of mutant massacre and stuff that start happening in Omnibuses 4 and 5. The New Mutants are very much on a similar thread. And so the only book that's really dealing with the general public hating and fearing mutants is like X Factor 1 through 30. And then it kind of gets up its own ass a little bit and it starts being about other things. But I do really like a lot of early X Factor. I think you can't really judge by the first 5 issues because then Louise Simonson takes over and she's just so masterful and she's so many plots in the air. I really like a lot of the teens of X Factor and the 20s of X Factor. I get less interested in the 30s and 40s and 50s of X Factor. So I would say sample it, maybe Marvel Unlimited, or read it just in the Mutant Massacre Omnibus or whatever, and see if you're really feeling it. If you're really feeling it around like issue 9, 10, 11, 12, that's the vibe of X Factor, I would say. Okay. No Horn dropped all the X titles apart from Storm and McKay's X-Men and Exceptional. Hopefully that gives them some insights. Yeah, this is the thing that makes me think about it. Like, I think X fans are so apt to just buy everything that all Marvel gets are like success signals, and they don't really understand like, okay, I'm buying this, but I hate it. Like, there's no signal to send. Marvel, you can keep buying it and say you hate it. I can come on here and scream about it every week. To Marvel, I like it just as much as if I didn't scream, because they just don't know. TaylorMade is here. Absolutely wonderful to see me, and wonderful to see me. That blue looks fabulous on you. Thank you. I thought I would go with a solid color today because I did a lot of patterns. Of course, do I have a spreadsheet of every shirt that I wore on the show in the first quarter of 25? Of course I do. It's me. There's always a spreadsheet. I wonder why we don't get numbers from comic sales. Well, because there's no benefit to that, James. A lot of industries that do have sales numbers which are released are they're either released against their will because they would prefer actually not the general public to know their sales numbers, or they're released because it helps them. Like movies really see the sales numbers comes out because it's good to be the number one movie and more people will see it. But in movies, we're talking about a market where there's only 20 out at any given time. So yeah, it's worth jousting to be number one, or even jousting to be number 10 if you're an indie film. And in books, of course, there's a huge benefit from being a New York Times bestseller, right? But in comics, what is the benefit from saying you're the king of an anthill in the garden? Ooh, we had the number one comic last week in sales. Well, who cares? That doesn't actually help you sell more comics. So I think with comics, it's releasing the sales numbers really has no actual benefit to them. The releasing sometimes the bookstore sales numbers, A, they can't avoid it because BookScan releases numbers for a lot of things and people parse it down to the comics. But B, it does help them tell success stories like DC's success with compact comics. So I think there's more incentive to say that. Max Appleman, your orange pool noodle, it just is not that attractive, iconic things to say during a breakup. Super Panda made it only 20 likes. Yeah, it does help when you like. It helps spread, and you're watching it anyway. So the like button is what, a couple of centimeters of fingers movement away. It's easy to do, and it sends good signals. Talking about data and signals to YouTube. Stephen Patterson, which superhero team do I think had a lot of potential to be great, but Marvel writers have let them down massively? I would say the Thunderbolts. How it's so easy to just have a team of villains that people like, or anti-heroes or whatever. There's a friggin' movie right now and we don't even have a Thunderbolts ongoing. It's part of the Doom event. It just seems like Marvel stopped understanding what to put at the front of that brand to get lots of pre-orders. And also they stopped understanding what to advertise that brand as. And so nobody sent them sales signals that they wanted it, right? And it's not like you can just put a bunch of Thunderbolts on the cover of another comic and it'll sell really well, because what does that even mean? Who would you even be putting on that cover? So I think that a lot of times when teams fail at Marvel, there starts to be a disconnect between the sale, how to get the sales signals that Marvel actually cares about. And with Thunderbolts, it's what signal would they even get? The only signal they can get is how a Thunderbolts #1 does. But it's when fans just see Bucky up on the cover, it's okay, I think there's more. And they kind of corrupted the brand a little bit by using it as a mini series in a bunch of events and really watering down who the Thunderbolts were or what it stands for. So I think they've kind of harmed that brand in addition to not knowing. Something was epic that I did, maybe orange pool noodles. One wheelchair Xing from the ashes is full of orange pool noodles. Apparently this is going to be one of I made a bit. I unknowingly started a bit, and this is the orange pool noodle bit. This is a confirmation to read Volatility. I'm obsessed. I read it probably 10, 12 times all the way through in this point in my life. I haven't for at least 5 years because I haven't been keeping up with the newest ones. I probably haven't read a new one since right after we got to New Zealand. So I'm 2 or 3 books behind. The name changes, saying Ola Kane, saying Borders bookstores. I really miss Borders. Me too. I spent so much of my youth there. I tried to work there. I can never know. Especially once they added the music, they broke through the wall to the next storefront and they put in the CD section. I wanted to work there so bad. And the closest one to my house was probably a 45-minute bus ride away. And I just didn't care. I was please, I just want to work at the Borders. And to this day, I don't know if I was flirting with the young college age lady that was working at the CD counter in the middle of the CD section, or if I just wanted to be her and work at Borders. But I hope you're doing very well wherever you are, CD lady from Borders. Always an instigator hot take on prose writers. Robin Hobb is awful. I don't know who that is, but let's have this hot take and enjoy it. And cannot write a female character to save her life. I'm convinced she doesn't actually like women. She writes them like she hates them. Oh, I don't even want to get into the Facebook account drama, Ken. Here's my PSA. If you have a voice over internet number, like Google Voice or whatever, a lot of services now will not send confirmation texts to those numbers anymore. I've been recently locked out of credit cards. I've been locked out of Facebook. Sometimes I figure out a way to get around it, but I've definitely lost accounts. And I know that everybody's going to be like, just use the Authenticator app. But a lot of these things aren't social networks and they don't offer the Authenticator app, or I had no reason to use the Authenticator app because I had a phone number that I was using just fine. But now I am locked out of a bunch of accounts. So words to the wise, Omnibo loving the earlier start time. Yeah, for us, it's not early for the US. It's barely the same time for the US. Lance is going to be silent a bit because driving. Let me see if there's any more AMAs. Am I ready for the most wanted reprint stream tomorrow? No, not at all. I've been following in the email thread, but I will just show up and look pretty and hopefully have good things to say. I think it's like at an ungodly hour of the morning for me, I think. But I am very ready for the most wanted omnibuses because I've been working with a great team of minties from the background of Near Mint to put that together. What are my top 5 most wanted reprints? You know, I sometimes do FOMO myself on omnibuses, and later I'm like, you should have bought that. I think if they all got reprinted in fast sequence, I would get Road to War of Kings, and Realm of Kings. I have them all as oversized hardcovers. And I have all of the oversized, but there were a lot of little mini, like single trades and things that didn't get incorporated into the original oversized hardcovers. So I'd really, really like those. Also, I never got the Weapon X omnibus. And like, I probably am not going to keep buying X-Men omnibuses after 2012. But that's a 2002 series. In retrospect, I probably should have bought it. So that's 4 of my 5. I don't know what the 5th, I'd have to give some thought to what the 5th one would be. Tinian is a great gateway creator. That's a great term for it, gateway creator, for my non-comics friends. But NK Jemison and VE Schwab hopping over to write comics was a big help. Yeah, I think what people done this, I think we're going to have to get into the comics at this point after this one. But I think what people don't think about is when somebody comes over from prose to comics, somebody who's a Nebula award winner or Hugo award winner, which I believe NK Jemison is both in prose, they have so much more cachet behind their name than the most popular comic writer, than like Bendis, because they're from outside. So anytime there's like a TV writer or anything like that, like even if we think they suck, which there is one today that I do think sucks, they have so much more name recognition than anybody in the comic book industry. And just on that alone, they're probably keeping the sales of their titles alive as if they've any kind of notoriety. So I think anytime somebody from Book World comes over to comics, that's why it's always a big deal. And that's why you'll see somebody from Book World who like seems like a marginal figure to you. And they're like, how'd they land this comic? Who is this newbie? But it's like, because even a marginal figure in Book World is going to sell way, way more comics than the most popular comic writer. Hank, hair stuck to me, Hank. Oh, this is all for you, Hank. Oh my gosh. Okay. Just read some bedtime comics while putting the kids to bed, which means you're probably European. Time to enjoy another stream. Reaper likes the shirt. I refer to myself as a Marvel zombie back in the late 80s, so confirming that's been around forever. And No Horn, who's my favorite X-Men artist? I mean, easy answer, Greg Land. But Alan Davis. Greg Land, Alan Davis tie. Alan Davis just has more material than Greg Land. So we'll say Alan Davis here, Greg Land there. Okay. I'm just going to say Morena to my fellow Kiwi Beyond Comics that I put Ghostmaker above Dick Grayson. Yes, Dick Grayson wasn't even mentioned on the list. Maybe I don't like Dick that much after all. Okay, so I am going to get to more comments. I'm going to star one of them now, but it is way past the time that we actually get started on doing the thing that we're here to do, which is talking about the comics. There were not a ton this week. I had less than 40 polls, less than 40, which is unheard of. So it's hopefully going to be pretty quick. I mean, not hopefully, because I enjoy spending time with you, but just in terms of not going over 3 hours, perhaps we have found the key, which is me not reading that many comics. But before we get into new comics, we have to finish up this read that I've been doing of Reversal, an original graphic novel that was out 2 or 3 weeks ago. And before I hit the clock, let me just remind you, I will not see your comments live until I am through the letter F. So if anybody new comes in and like starts chatting, please let them know that I will see their comments when we get to the letter F, and I will refer back to a lot of your comments and correspond with you and get your opinions when we get to letter F. But this is ahead of the alphabet because I'm still finishing it. It was an OGN that was out 3 weeks ago called Reversal by Alex DeCampi, Kelly Fitzpatrick, Skylar Partridge, and Hassan Latsman Elhal. I need to bring up my credits PDF or else I will not know who made anything. Okay, now we can start the clock. So here's the thing about this. I read the final 2 chapters of Reversal this week so that I could comment on the whole thing. I think it's softened a little bit for me in the last 2 chapters. And the reason I say that is because it felt like the premise of the book, which was kind of this like outsiders trying to understand why magic was existing in the world and contend with the hatred of magic, kind of pivoted to be about why the magic exists and how the magic got that way. And it felt like it info dumped so hard in the 5th chapter. And it was, I mean, I could keep up with it. I'm a very experienced comic reader, but I just was less excited by the info dump, even though there was some really cool stuff about it. But there was like a princess and then another princess and then a prince and then a betrayal. And I started to like fade a little bit. It was still really high quality. And when I say fade a little bit, to me, that's like, it was like a 3.5 out of 5 instead of like a 5 out of 5, which the whole rest of the thing has been for me. But it really still turned out as a really great drama about families, and it's concluded in a really satisfying way, in a way that definitely invites a sequel. And I think the quality was so high. So even though it kind of lore dumped kind of hard in part 5 of 6, I do think it's really good, and I highly recommend it. Check it out if it's like on Hoopla or from your library. That matters, and that sends signals on the book market to booksellers that their book is doing well. I highly recommend it. I really loved it. And Skylar Partridge, I think, has become a must-buy artist for me after reading the series so good. Okay, so now we get into the actual pull list. And this one, I do have to mention, I got this as a comp copy. I always like to mention that if somebody actually gave something to me so you can evaluate if it affected my review. And this is the 27 run. It was a 3-issue series by Justin Zimmerman with art from Russell Crown, colors from Fran Gamboa, and flats from JC Rose and Roxio Canteros, and letters from Thomas Maurer. Here's, you know, I think I made a comment about this at the end of my last chat about it that kind of hinted at how I was going to respond to this issue, which it put too many hats on a hat. We know there's a thing that I said about this. The idea was there's maybe this one last surviving person on Earth, and there's 27 kaiju, and can he kill at least a few of the kaiju in case there's some life somewhere on Earth because they've completely destroyed it. And then at the end of issue 2, also there was an asteroid, which makes sense to a degree because like the asteroid could also destroy the Earth, and maybe it would be a good thing for the asteroid to hit the Earth because then it would do like a dinosaur cleansing thing and all the kaiju would die. But I think what happened as a result is this issue just became a real tangle of like, are we fighting kaiju or are we fighting an asteroid? And this little robot who like rides on his shoulder, just like making tons of pop culture references. And it was just like overstuffed with hats on hats. And so I didn't get satisfaction from it. I loved the first issue so much. And I thought the action in the second issue was so great. I just couldn't figure out what was supposed to be satisfying about this issue. You know, when you only have 3 issues in a miniseries, you need to really, by the second issue, have like clearly identified the thing that's going to be satisfying in the 3rd issue. So then you can pay it off. And I think because this had such a big twist at the end of the 2nd issue, it made it impossible for me to tell. I had no satiation message. You know how they say like all these things in the market now, like Ozempic, like artificially make you feel satiated so you don't eat as much. I had the opposite of that. I was like, I need more Reese's Pieces. I need more snacks. Let me eat bread and cheese, because I couldn't tell if I was full when I was done reading this 3rd issue. I'm no longer reading 2000 AD because it's just not a reward, as much as these monkey feet are so attractive to get me reading it. I did read Absolute Batman, and I know I said I was going to drop it, but I read it because it had Marcos Martin as the artist with colors from Months of Vincente and letters from Clayton Cowles. And even though I don't love a Scott Snyder script, I was like, you know what? I do really enjoy Marcos Martin, so we're just going to check it out. The thing is, Marcos Martin is so wildly different, even though Nick Dragotta certainly has a little bit of his like cartoony face aspect that Martin does, that I just felt like I was reading a totally different comic book. And if I'm being honest, this comic book worked so much better for me than Absolute Batman has worked for the past 6 issues. I think because it just has a little bit more of a pop art quality to it. It had a little bit of silliness. It turns out that like the brutality of this Batman, of him spearing people in the face with his bat ears, I am completely disinterested in that. You know what I'm interested in? This, which I laughed so freaking hard. At the bottom of this page, we see that Batman is hanging from a roof by the little hooks at the end of his cape, like a bat would do with their bat wings. I liked that. And I like how bold and colorful this is. And I really like that now that we've gotten past the kind of boring origin story, at least in my opinion, we're into this really interesting, you know, he's watching Arkham being built and kind of like wondering, like, what is it going to be? And also he's dealing with a mystery that ties into Mr. Freeze. But of course, it's not the Mr. Freeze we know and love. It's something different because we are in the Absolute universe. I really like this issue. I think this one saved it for me. This book was a drop. I had dropped it. And then when I saw, actually what I saw was, let me see if I can just drag my credits PDF onto the screen and you can see it. I saw this cover page, this credits page that was designed clearly by Marcos Martin and drawn by him. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I really kind of want to read that. And so that's what brought it back. And I read it, and I guess I'm going to keep pulling it now. So there you go. Okay. Action Comics Superman. This is, I believe, the last of these Superstar Superman runs, and this is by G. Willow Wilson, who's actually only doing 2 issues, not 3. The thing that I think a lot of you are going to find charming about this issue by G. Willow Wilson, with art from Gavin Goodry, colors from Trish Mulville, and letters from Dave Sharp, is this feels like a very throwbacky Superman. There's actually a note on the first page that is, this happens before Action Comics 1050, but when I say throwbacky, I don't just mean throwbacky to like 2 years ago. I mean, this is throwbacky to, it feels like a very Christopher Reeves inspired Superman. And so it does feel a little bit lightweight, like Lois has to give up a story and Clark says he'll take the story, and it's very like, kind of like bumbling Clark. He's like, I'm afraid of flying in planes, and he's like, oh, I fell and tripped, which I don't really feel like DC plays that as much. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that to me feels like a very Christopher Reeves Superman that DC does not play as much anymore. So he's in the Arctic. He wears a very cool Arctic costume, which I think I deliberately did not screenshot to tempt you to go and look at it. And he has a fight that maybe has something to do with climate change. It was very, very pleasant. It was not anything more than pleasant, but it was pleasant and proficient, which is a nice change from the last Superstar arc, which I did not like, from John Ridley. I didn't read Adventure Time #1 from Oni Press. I'm a little bit too old to have gotten into Adventure Time. And I remember when I was getting into Steven Universe, I was like, oh, Adventure Time is the other one people talk about a lot. Maybe I'll like that too. And I watched one episode of that and it was like fart jokes. And I'm like, it didn't, I know there's more than that. And I know there's a huge cult of you who like Adventure Time, but that was just my sampling. And so it did not speak to me. So then we come to Alien Paradiso. I'm so happy this is over because this may have damaged the Alien brand enough for me that I'm not going to read Alien comic books anymore, even though I have the whole Alien DVD box set, Blu-ray, whatever downstairs. I think I have 2 copies of it because I love Alien so much, but this was so bad. It was by Steve Fox with art from Edgar Salazar and also inks from Victor Naya, colors from Carlos Lopez, and the Xenomorph Vision was by Peter Nguyen with letters from Clayton Cowles. This is the final issue. So look, let's talk about the positives. After 4 issues of having nobody to root for or root against, we finally had like this odd couple of this female gangster person and this male agent person running around together who actually you could kind of root for them. And there were some cool elements in this issue where they did blow up a bunch of aliens and they did have to deal with a face hugger, which he gets off of his face here just before it implants down his neck. But it's just too little too late to reach issue 5 and to have 2 characters that I'm just kind of sort of interested in and rooting for. I just feel like this never sold me the human perspective. And so I never had to decide if I was into the aliens killing people or not into the aliens killing people. I just think it was a really bad script, unfortunately. Now we come to a kind of big one. It is a relaunch of The Amazing Spider-Man with Joe Kelly in the writer's seat, art from Pepe Larraz and color art from Marte Gracia with letters from Joe Caramagna, and then a backup story with art from John Romita Jr. with Scott Hanna and Marcio Mendez. This was such a relief to read. I just was so relieved to read somebody who really seems to understand Peter Parker. Yeah, it was Parker luck, and there's only so much patience I have for Parker luck. I get it. But it just felt like the lighthearted Spider-Man. He loves his Aunt May. He's ambitious, but he's a screw up. He can't help but go out there and help people. It just felt like the first time I was back to the Peter that I love for so long. And I liked a lot of the Zeb Wells run, but I just needed this time with him and to love it. And Pepe Larraz, it's kind of crazy to see him drawing Spider-Man. He's such an industry superstar. He could be doing whatever he wants, but he wanted to do Spider-Man. If you read the end note, Spider-Man was his first love. And I just love how he draws these characters. I love how svelte his Peter is. However, I do dislike strongly, I won't say hate, Marte Gracia's coloring. And not all of his coloring. This Aunt May face, I love it so, so much. He does this thing where he's always got to put one more dot of highlight, and she's got it on her cheek there or chin there, and it's just a circle, and I can't stand it. But he does it on Peter's face down the bottom. He always, as a colorist, I want him to see the layer of color right behind his final layer of color. Because I suspect that's the last little touch. I mean, I go too crazy in the highlighter sometimes too, but it just ruins panels for me because all I can see is that one dapple of highlight, and it really ruined Gods for me from Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schiti. I think that he colors Lara's better than he colors Skeety. But also, I want to point out that John Romita Jr. is in a little bit of a resurgence here, inked by Scott Hanna and colored by Marcio Menez, and I want to explain why. Look at this Norman Osborn down at the bottom of this page here. It has the typical John Romita Jr. cheek slashes, but they are in what I believe is called a color hold, where they've been inked, but the colorist has decided that he's not going to take the black ink. He's actually going to color the lines, which you don't actually see too frequently in comic books. And with the shading colored as lines to knock them all the way back to just a darker beige on his face, it actually gives face shading. It doesn't just look like slashes. To me, this is the #1 difference between John Romita's art looking decent and John Romita's art looking bad. So this is the same way he was colored by Marcio Menez on the Godzilla one-shot with Fantastic Four. I hope that they keep coloring him this way, because when he's colored this way, I find that I can actually enjoy him. Okay, Aquaman, #4. By Jeremy Adams, art by John Timms, colors from Rex Locus, letters by Dave Sharp. I saw, after I read this, some people online that are enjoying it. I wish that I could have a brain transplant and understand what you're saying, because I hated this so fucking much. It was so bad, so dumb, so pointless. I don't see what you're seeing. We're in this strange world, which you got to through some portal, and Mera is there somewhere captive or not, who knows? And so people capture him again for the fourth issue running, and then he's captured, and then he's got to fight, but now he controls water, so he's like, you can't contain me because I control the water. What is the point? What is the point? And I understand that Jeremy Adams is a little bit of a slow starter sometimes, and I've seen this before, and I know I have to have patience, but I hate this so much that I will give it one more issue and at least see if I can entertainingly scream about it, because I'm just having trouble even summoning the entertaining amount of screaming, because it was so dumb and so pointless. And it was just like, what is this script? What actually happened? Somebody tell me what happened here. All that happened is he was captured again, by that mermaid girl that he always is friends with. And she's like, you won't know what's coming. I have to do this. And then he's like, I control the water. And then he breaks out, which I think is the same thing that happened last issue. I'm angry. Okay. And I also don't like Tim's art, so that's not doing any favors. Okay. Now, although I like how detailed it is. I just hate all of his faces and figures. Okay. Now we come to the 3 astonishing Marvel Digital Comics. I have 60 seconds to talk about all 3 of them. This is Astonishing Avengers by Steve Orlando, Francesco Archidiacono, Carlos Lopez, Travis Lanham. And this wraps up a fight with Cap and the original Human Torch against some like Frankenstein zombie type people, but also Hercules and Hawkeye and Lightning show up. I actually thought it was pretty cool. The colors were neat. It was because we started with just 2 characters in the fight. It was easy to follow the fight to the end of the fight. I will say the likeness of Cap, which you can see in the cover here. What? Whose face is that? That's not what Cap looks like, but it was decent. Astonishing Spider-Man. I think I just have to give up on this. I mean, I'll keep reading it, but I think we're just going to say bad every week. Scott Aukerman writes it. Julian Shaw art, color art, Cicely De La Cruz, who I hate their colors on this, and Joe Sabino letters. This plays this whole thing with, like, I guess Scott Aukerman is friends with that actor Jason Matsuzukas. I don't know how to say his last name. He was on The Good Place, and he's got curly hair, not as nice as mine. The whole comic was just this bit of him being on a podcast about Spider-Man. Like, I don't care if that actor, it's like not like he's actually acting in the comic. He's just his likeness saying stupid lines. Why would I care? And then they'd set up such a cool cliffhanger at the end of the last issue, which was like Spidey having his powers messed up. But then we like don't even play that beat here because we're so busy like in this, oh, haha, it's a podcast with an actor that you met one time on TV and he's in this comic book. Dumb, hated it. Okay, and then Astonishing X-Men. I'm already out of time, but that's okay because all I have to say about this is it was bad. Written by Alex Packnell, art by Philip Sevy, colors from Michael Bartolo, letters from Clayton Cowles. I don't know how Alex Packnell managed to write every single character out of character here, but he did it for Skin, Husk, and Banshee, which is pretty offensive because if you're a Gen X fan, you're really hoping for something good out of the 3 of them. I mean, I do think Philip Sevy's art has come a long way since he's been doing these digital comics, but I just hated the script so much. Okay. Now we come to Avengers Academy, which is a full-length comic, so I will give it a full-length amount of time. It's written by Anthony Oliveira, art from Carola Borelli, colors from Ruth Redman, and letters from Joe Caramagna. This, unfortunately, I think was probably the worst issue of this series, which is not helping me in my quest to get you all to read this series because I need a good issue to recommend you all, and I haven't had that for a month or 2 now. This continues to play out the whole we're stuck in all different parts of time thing, and it's got like Normie kid Red Goblin Osborn fighting against himself, but it's in an alternate reality, and like nothing happens. Like he's just like, you killed this reality. Oh no. So didn't even need the whole 60 seconds. So I hope this book gets back to what it's good at sometime soon. Now let's go to Batman and Robin by Philip Kennedy Johnson. I would like to mention, by the way, my average rating for this week was so much higher than last week. So if it feels like I hate everything, I don't. I actually like this week much better. I might just be in the middle of some comic books that I hate here because... So look, I got to talk about the thing that would actually interest you, because I didn't care, but you might care, which is that the whole point of this comic is that it's told primarily through two different journals. One of them is Thomas Wayne's journals, and then one of them are Damian Wayne's journals. And Thomas Wayne's journal are drawn by Hugo Petrus in this beautiful pencil on like tea-stained paper. And I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And it has a really nice moment between Thomas Wayne and Bruce, where Thomas Wayne realizes he's like being too busy and he's missing Bruce's youth, which in a way like hints at like why he would even take him to go see Zorro and like why all that happened. You know, it's like always got to tie in. Then Batman is hallucinating because he got hit with this stuff. And so he's like at all these different places and he can't understand why he got there. That didn't work for me at all. And then he reads Damian's journal, which is drawn by Juni Ba. Right? Yeah. So here's the thing. I really, really dislike Juni Ba's art. And I really, really dislike Philip K. Kennedy Johnson's take on Damian. I think it's absolutely wrong. So seeing Damian journaling about his feelings that I think are wrong, drawn by an artist who I don't like. And I will give you that it's supposed to look like Damian's actual art that he's drawing. So it's not meant to be like super polished comic art. But even to see Juni Ba drawing as Damian, I was still like, don't want it. So unfortunately for me, pour moi, this was just a comic that I could not get into because it had too many elements that I'm not interested in. And it's dragging on too long. This is like the 6th or 7th issue of this Memento arc, but it's like part of a second part of the arc. Damian's kidnapped, which is how we ended the first arc. And this doesn't progress at all in that direction. It's just too many elements that anger me. And it's getting close to drop for me, but because I'm just understanding that I do sometimes like Philip Kennedy Johnson on some titles, but I just hate his characterization of Damian. Oh, but now I get to talk about a comic book I love. Batman Dark Patterns. And here's the thing. Starting to read this issue by Dan Waters, art from Hayden Sherman, colors from Triona Farrell, and letters from Frank Sidovic, I was like, how interesting is Batman wandering around in this tower going to be? Like, we kind of already gave away the big reveal last issue is that somehow the whole tower is inhabited or controlled by that little evil marionette dude. So how interesting could it be? But of course, Dan Waters found a way to make it interesting. Batman's kind of barging in and he thinks he found the little, why do I say marionette? What am I trying to say? Puppet. He's thought he found a little puppet, and it's just a little girl. And so Batman has to like dial down off of like mission focused Batman to be like, can I just talk to this little girl? And then her mom is there, and the mom is just like, do you want some tea? And basically just is totally unsympathetic to Batman and his mission. And the page layouts are so cool. And I loved how Dan Waters like let the whole action grind to a halt for this scene. And I love seeing Batman in domestic settings. I love seeing Batman in a living room. I love seeing Batman in the suburbs. And this run is doing a really good job of that. And then we pivoted to really, really cool action and cool problem solving from Batman as he's like, if this whole building is kind of a living thing now, where is the brain? I love how architectural and angular all of the layouts are. I continue to love the colors. I love this little palmed fist of striking this puppet mask, and the eyes in the puppet mask is just, they don't move, but just the way the eyes look dead in the eyes as he's getting hit just made me laugh. I just kept looking at that panel over and over. This comic is extraordinary. I mean, I feel like I'm only talking about the surface level delights of it, but it's truly cases. It's cases for Batman to problem solve, which is my number one favorite thing to see of Batman. The art is incredible. The writing is incredible. It's terse. And because they're only 3 issues long each, it seems like, it just feels like each one has a beginning, a middle, and the end. And this issue told us exactly what the payoff is going to be in the next issue. So we know what we need to expect. And so it has promised already how it will pay it off. And that is the way you construct a 3-issue arc. Honestly, I'm just so excited to read this comic book every month. This is what Legends of the Dark Knight used to be. If you've never read Legends of the Dark Knight from the 1990s, it was like creators doing 2 to 5 or 6 issue arcs and always rotating, and all of them were relatively early in Batman's career. And at the time, it was a direct market only title, I believe. And like, that was something great. Now, I think you would just want to relaunch it. Like if there was some other artist and writer combination that was going to do a Dark Patterns, they would probably relaunch it because it would always sell more as a #1. But honestly, in my dream world, I wish that they would continue this past issue number 12. I'm sure they're getting good signals about it because all I keep hearing is people buying and buying and buying it every week. And then maybe have Dan Waters and Hayden Sherman like alternate with other artists on it. That would be my dream, but who knows? Okay. Behemoth, I dropped a while ago. It's about a bunch of people who got swallowed by a giant Godzilla-type monster, and they're living in its stomach. I just didn't really care if any of the characters died at the end of issue number 1, so that kind of told me the story. This one, Condrey, Prayer for the Dying. I thought the solicit was interesting because it basically was like, this tells you everything you wanted to know about Condrey. And I was like, well, as one of the billions of people on Earth who have no idea what the fuck your comic is, you might need to write something a little bit more in that solicit to attract my attention. Okay, now we come to Daredevil, and hallelujah, praise the Lord. Daredevil issue 20, it's time to start a second arc. We went 19 issues on the first arc, while every Daredevil lover I know dropped it, and now we've got a new issue, and it's felt like pandering to me, because surely Saladin Ahmed, by the time he was scripting issue number 20, had a sense that the fans were in revolt about how much they absolutely despised this run, and so it felt like we were just getting him in a black costume just because that's something that fans think are cool. That said, really great pencils from Jose Luis Soros, and really good inks from Warren Jr., and really great colors from Jesus Bertov. So I did enjoy the art here. This is a tone that I could hang with and stick with. It feels like a little bit 2000s in the colors, but it's very detailed, and there was a lot of great moments in the art. But a lot of this book was basically just him like sleeping with this lady that he met, like, and I just didn't, I'm like, I don't, maybe a lot of people like sexy Daredevil. I don't know. I think there's only so many pages that you can show to me of like two people in bed where I haven't even like met one of them before. Like, whatever, Matt Murdock gets around. Like, am I getting anything from this comic book? Am I like learning anything about his character? Is it that exciting to see him sleep with yet another woman? It just felt like very like, let me play some hits. We're going to have some sexy pages. We're going to put him in his black costume. And I do think there's something interesting here, which is that like there's something going on in this building where the people are living that's like corrupting them. It's almost as if Saladin Ahmed read Batman Dark Patterns and was like, let me do that at about 50% as good as Dark Patterns is doing it. But you know what? It's not as terrible as the first 19 issues. So, you know, maybe, and I do really like the art. So I'll give it a little bit of credit, but it just felt very perfunctory, very cynical of like, let's just have Daredevil sleeping with a woman and let's just put him in the black costume and maybe we'll get the fans back on our side. I did not read Creature Commandos from DC. This is the final issue of the David Dalmatian series. I did take a little dip in the cool waters of DC versus Vampires World War V, because I just never read it before, and I thought, and I like vampire stuff. What's interesting that Matthew Rosenberg is doing here is at first the vampires were the bad guys, but then now there's so many vampires that we love the characters that he was like, ooh, well, how can I make the vampires the good guys in a way? So by bringing Darkseid or Darkseid and the parademons into things, now we get to appreciate the vampires as good guys, and that's kind of fun. I mean, it was fun. I like Otto Schmidt's art sometimes. I don't know if I buy Otto Schmidt as an artist for like a hyper bloody action gutsy comic book. Otto Schmidt to me is better as an artist as he was on Green Arrow. And so I don't think it was a great fit, but it was nice enough. I'm not showing in tears because I actually started with issue 6, which was last month, or 7, which was last month's issue, which is the beginning of an arc. And it was fine, and I understood it. And it was really cool to see Darkseid in this universe. He was smashing Wonder Woman as she fights to defend Batgirl, is apparently the queen of the vampires. I can understand why people like this, but it feels like it's also very much for like Injustice fans who just want to see like the DC toys just all mashed together. And I don't really derive a lot of enjoyment from that, but it was well made, and I'm happy that I read one issue of it. Now we come to a comic that I am obsessed with. Why do you have Jeff Shaw doing your covers when you have Carlos Mango inside, and it doesn't look like this at all? Like, Shaw does this very kind of gawky figure. He's got this very long face. It almost like looks like kind of cartoony. Why would you pair that cover with this interior? there are people who are not reading this comic, I guarantee you, because they saw that cover and they were like, okay, whatever, when this is what the inside looks like. I don't understand. So the inside is by Carlos Magno, who I love and whose line weights finally have seemed to be perfected. Maybe that's because of the colors of Espen Grutengern, I don't know, and letters from Corey Petit. And I love this issue for the exact same reason I love the last issue. It's Doctor Strange in a procedural. What I think I've come to learn is that I like Doctor Strange when he's got a little bit of like a Sherlock Holmes quality to him. I like to see him doing everyday things rather than constant magic. So here he's like, Loki, why did you kill this person? And Loki's like, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. I mean, I did do it, but I didn't mean to do it. I didn't have motivation to do it. And Doctor Strange thinks he believes. Oh, we had a little internet hiccup. Can everybody see me? I kind of blinked in and blinked out for a second. Okay, well, I'll keep talking, but tell me if it's really slow and jerky, and then we will know. So I just really love that. I love him video quality getting bad. Okay, let's take a pause and see if I can fix it. Am I like back Logan Wayne? Is it all like as clear as it was? Okay, my computer is telling me that everything should be fine now. So maybe it was just some little crab crawled across the internet wire at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean and tripped over it, and that's what happens. But anyway, point being, I really love the procedural nature of this. I really love Doctor Strange having a mystery and not so often the problem with magic books that I think a lot of people have with magic in a superhero world are what are the rules? What are the limits? Because when you're Zatanna and anything you say backwards will happen, then what kind of, do you have to always put tape over her mouth? How do you make things hard for Zatanna? And so for Doctor Strange, I think this book has really established what makes this difficult for him is he's not the Sorcerer Supreme anymore. He does not know all the rules of magic in Asgard. And this particular problem he's having can't necessarily be solved by magic. And so he realizes he needs money in Asgard. So he's like, well, why don't I volunteer to just be a doctor? I'm always going to be good at being a doctor, even if I don't quite know the rules of magic. To me, that really works because it shows that he can't just magic his way out of this situation. That's a Doctor Strange run that I love. Sometimes I think when he gets too epic and too cosmic and too eldritch, it just feels like he's capable of anything. And so we start to lose the rules. And I think that's why Jason Aaron coming back to writing him in 2015 and relaunching him kind of really worked, because Jason Aaron started from the perspective of like, how does this magic work right now anyway? And I think that's always something you need for Doctor Strange. This page, Carlos Magno draws this woman who Doctor Strange ran into last killing trolls or whatever, and she's got a knife in the back, and in the next page Doctor Strange says, well, do you want a scar? Such a great scene and just so stunningly beautiful, such great colors. This book is extraordinary. Really a big fan. I did not read Died Hard, which is apparently about a killer Easter bunny from Keenspot. I did not read Exciting Comics from Antarctic Press because I can never find it digitally. I would love to know how many issues of this they sell a month. That would be so interesting to me, because who, without ever marketing it, and they don't even put the creator names on the title or on the cover, and like there's no digital copy, but like as somebody who likes 90s comic nonsense, I see a guy with all these bolts and crap fixed to him. I'm like, ooh, I might like that, but I have no way to know. So I would love to know who they're playing to. I get the feeling that an Arctic Press is usually just playing to like some core of people that they established at some point that I don't know where they got them from. I don't know who they are, but I did read some of their titles back in 2019, which when they were more available digitally, and I liked them just fine. So I just always wonder from the marketing perspective, like, who are you marketing to? How are you growing? It doesn't even say what it is. This, as far as I can tell by the amount of naked men on this Final Fright from Udon Comics, I think they're either breaking up or trying to cut in line at an orgy, a gay orgy. That I don't know if that's what it's about, but I think that's what it's about. I did read Fire and Ice, When Hell Freezes. Like an Ariana Mehera on letters. And here's the thing that I will say. So it seems like you're still going to get a kind of stuttery experience. Unfortunately, this far into the show, I don't have a lot that I can do about the internet. I can plug and unplug, but if it's slow, it's just slow. Let me try a couple more things and see if it bounces back. Is it a little bit better now? Yeah, well, we can only do what we can do. If it gets really bad, we might just have to like bag it. I don't know. There's only so much control I have over the internet. So let's keep talking about this. Fire and Ice are actually, almost was my moment of crisis. They are my metric of if DC is using enough small characters. Because to me, these are like supporting characters who were team book characters, and we completely lost that whole swath of characters in the New 52. And so when more of these characters are appearing in comic books at DC, to me, it's like DC is healing. I did not like the last series of this. And what I've discovered from reading this issue, which I found very, very funny, is that I just really do not think, I think her name is Natasha Bustos. I don't think she sells humor very well, because I went back to the couple of issues of the last series that I read and disliked. And the script was very similar to the script, but I just remember thinking it was not funny at all. But here, the script really, really worked for me, because to me personally, trading powers, not intentionally. They do it as the result of the All-In and all the nonsense that happened at the end of Absolute Power, but they're still just trying to live this small town life just outside of Smallville, and they're hanging out with Superman's mom. They have a little robot. There's a hairdresser where they use as their headquarters, even though they're not really invited to be there. It's got all those subtle little funny moments, but they're also dealing with having the opposite powers. And it's not just the confusion of having opposite powers, it's the confusion of Fire is used to breaking stuff down and being aggressive, and now she has these ice powers that just land with a thud. Ice is used to building things up and immediately jumping in to support things, but now she's just setting them on fire. So it's really highlighting how different their personalities are, and like how quickly their friendship falls apart when they can't do the thing that is like intrinsically them, which to me is really like a funny beat to play. I just found this really charming, and I love Stephen Byrne's art. So I think a huge part of it for me is that he is really selling the punchlines. I really like Joanne Starr too on that Harley Quinn fart comic, and she sold the punchlines for me really, really well there. So I think it was just the last series of this just had an artist that for me does not really sell the punchlines. I'm entranced by this cover. Just stare into the void of Fugu Comics. There's a little brown pufferfish on a pile of skulls. It's got pink on it, so you know I would buy it. But I'm just fascinated by this cover. And that's actually the end of the Fs already. I told you it was a really small week. We are like halfway through already. So let me see what the comments have been, other than, of course, just that everything is broken. Let's see where I left off. Somewhere around there. Okay. So let's see what everybody's been saying. Lash G finished the first trade of Jeff Lemire's Minor Arcana, and it moved him to tears. Just the same brilliant quality with all of the stories that he both writes and draws himself. That is the best advertisement you will get on this channel, because I don't know how to say nice things about Jeff Lemire. Also, Logan Wayne saying, I might carry over the talk on tariffs. Well, here's the thing. The tariff world is still going crazy. There were tariffs, and there weren't. And then there were just tariffs on China, and then China put tariffs on the US, but then individual countries are negotiating with the US. It's right now we're in the art of the deal phase. So I don't think there's anything definitive to say about the tariffs yet, because no one knows, including the people who are setting the tariffs. Super Jop also ordered the Lazarus hardcovers today. Could you get all of them? I thought one of them was like really, really hard to find, like 2 or 3. I thought was really, really hard to find. But great if you found them all. I love that so much. Edwin Billett is going to try and read Batman Dark Patterns while I do my live stream. I'm fascinated by people who can do things while hearing things. Like, I can cook while listening to a podcast, but that's it. Like, I can't drive while listening to a podcast. I certainly can't read while listening to a podcast. Lance McNair just happy to still be alive because he's old enough to remember comics in grocery stores. Noah Horn reread my Lazarus hardcovers due to my passion for the series. Well, did you love it just as much this time around, huh? Just use Infantino's list for selling comic covers. Purple and a gorilla. See, that's what I mean. They knew that certain things on the covers sold. Comic Pal saying, oh, we did some of these comments already. Okay. We already read that. Going a little farther down to things we maybe haven't done yet. Ryan Wilson feels like X Factor is decent up until around issue 50 and then wasn't good until Peter David took over. Yeah, well, I really kind of fell off of it before 50 because I'm not a big Judgment War fan, which is what's happening in from like 42 or 43 to 50. And then it stops really feeling like it's about anything from 50 to 60. And then it kind of gets pulled into all the X-Men nonsense starting with issue 60. And so it kind of like comes back to life. Ryan Wilson feels like if the sales numbers were good, they would be telling us. Well, that's the thing. The only incentive they have to give us sales numbers right now is when they're amazingly, mind-blowingly huge. So they're only going to tell us the sales numbers if something gets over 100,000. That's the only time they're going to mention it, because there is no incentive for them to tell us like some B tier book that's really popular. I don't know, like Iron Man suddenly gets really popular, and Iron Man's shipping over 50,000 issues a month. That would be huge for Iron Man. That would be unheard of. Very few comics other than Batman are shipping reliably 50,000 issues a month, but that would be huge for Iron Man. But there would still be no incentive for them to say anything, because to us, it wouldn't seem like a big achievement. It wouldn't get them anything, right? Like, why? It costs money to put out a press release and like be on PR Newswire. Why would you spend that money and effort to say something that most fans are not going to talk about? A lot of X Factor discourse. One Wheelchair X thinks X Factor from Mutant Massacre to Inferno is so strong. I agree. The way Louise Simonson turned the mess of X Factor's premise into a really strong conflict and villain is incredible. Also, Simonson's Jean Grey is particularly amazing. Yes, I think Simonson is one of the few writers who are good at Jean Grey. In fact, I think there are only three. It is Louise Simonson back in the day. It is Grant Morrison on New X-Men, and it is Kieran Gillen. Those are the only three writers that I think I've ever enjoyed writing Jean Grey. Maybe Fabian Nicieza does some decent Jean Grey here and there, but mostly it's those three for me. Edu Lorena, hello. Do I think DC will go through compendiums? I bought Nightwing, but I fear DC is going to let me down. I think DC has an incentive to do complete singular runs in compendium. We saw them finally solicit Mystery Sandman Theater, I almost said, Volume 2, which is their most canceled book, I feel like, of all time. They've hinted that they might do it in different formats so many times, and it's fallen through. At the point that they're going to print a second one of that, and that they're doing all of Milestone, I do think that we can rely on them to probably finish out the runs that they've begun in compendium. I'm really interested in getting a second Lobo compendium. But I do think they also have DC Finest, and there's probably a demand to get some of the compendium stuff in DC Finest. But yeah, I have faith they're going to finish Nightwing for you. I think that's going to happen. Again, I never have any insider information. I just look at trends of sales and releases. It is very helpful if you like the video. There's kind of a lot of you watching right now. Really, really good for me. I love it. It would be nice if you all liked the video as well. James, the Medium Answer, is like, Robin, Hob hate on this Sunday in front of my cereal? I don't think so, sir. Never heard this criticism before. Next, imagine I saw a Marvel zombie once in the wild, a conspicuous Wall Street trader just off work at Midtown Comics, although he bought every DC weekly off the rack. You know what's funny? Thinking back to the 90s, and I had where did this money come from? I was getting money for like getting A's on report cards. I don't think I was working at a summer camp at that point. And like, I was pretty close to buying every Marvel book. I bought all the Spider-Man line. I was buying all three of the Trinity. There was a point before Onslaught that I was buying Marvel's whole line and all of Wildstorm, and then some DC as well. But comics were only like $1, maybe $2, but I still don't know where I was getting all that money. I think maybe my grandmother was like floating me extra money so I could keep the poll alive. James Abel and Absolute Batman #7, artwork on the faces seems off. Well, I think that's just how Marcos Martin draws faces. This feels like it was trying to be Long Halloween. Yeah, it was very Tim Sale, and it had some horror elements, but I think that's why it appealed to me, actually. But maybe that's why it didn't appeal to some of you. Cruel Angel and Absolute Batman wasn't a fan of the guest artist. Guest Freeze is going to be a quick intro with Bane on the way, and she never died. So it's so funny to me, Marcos Martin, even though I don't love his art, I love his storytelling. I love his paneling. I love the details. I don't love his faces, but I like so much of art aside from faces. I'm not saying that that's not the case for you, but to me, the clarity of storytelling is why I buy a Marcos Martin comic book. But I also know that a lot of people react really poorly to him. And there's another one that draws in that style that people are always, Polito. People are like, oh, I hate it, get it away. But it's like, just because they don't like that style of faces, which is perfectly valid, like what you're going to like. Cyril says, new arc of Absolute Batman is exciting. I love this take on Mr. Freeze. Okay, so a wide array. Bailey Yaddle, hello. I don't think I've said hello to you. I know I'm in the middle of talking about the books, but I just want to say truly appreciate how time and energy you've put into your guys and list. Oh, thank you so much. You know what? There's new one this week. And I've been so busy that I didn't even get to put it on the main page. So I don't know if I could even show it. But I did a guide to Ghost Machine. And why? Well, because I was thinking about catching up on Ghost Machine. We'll get to the G's in just a second and see that I didn't actually catch up on Geiger, but I have my reasons. But yeah, the thing that I did for it, I don't know why I can't find it on right now, but the reason I did the guide to Ghost Machine was because, again, I was looking around and nobody was telling me the answer to the question that I wanted the answer to. And the answer I wanted was for all of the things in the unnamed universe, which is the universe that Geiger and Redcoat are in. What are all the years that the unnamed are like active, and like how do they connect to each other as opposed to the other universes? And like even the Wikipedia page, which was decent, was not giving me the answer to that. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to do it myself, because if nobody's going to answer it, that's always how Crushing Crisis Guide comes to be. Like, it's always me saying nobody answered this question well enough for me. So I did a Ghost Machine guide. It's not even linked on the site yet. It is only available to $2 and up patrons. And the way I did it is I broke it down by section. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen yet, so you can't see this. I broke it down by section. And so this is, oh gosh, now I'm starting to break things. So this is the unnamed universe, right? So here's, everything Ghost Machine, and I break it down table of contents. So first I just do the unnamed universe, right? And I put them in order of when their present day is. So first there's Redcoat, then there's the Blizzard, an Image 30th anniversary that was set in 2019. Then there's Junkyard Joe, which is set pretty much in the present day. Then there's First Ghost, which hasn't been released yet, but it's going to be in the present day. Then comes Geiger, right? And so I kind of did this for all the lines and gave as much information as I could on how the lines are arranged. And it took about 3 hours altogether to put together. You're going, 3 hours, there's not that many titles, but to like research them all, read a couple of issues of each one, look at all the year ranges for all of them, put them in order, figure out what all the links are, figure out what is in all of these, figure out where all of the stories from the anthology issues are collected. That time adds up. That's why guides take time. And so that's why I appreciate your kind words, Bailey Yaddle, about appreciating guides, because they're very time intensive. But also that's why I appreciate you're all here, a whole lot of you actually right now, watching the stream, because this stream is like between half to one of a guide I could do while doing the stream. But I think there's value in doing the stream too. And so especially when a lot of you watch and like and comment, there were so many cool comments last week and chat, it tells me that this is worthwhile doing too. Yes, Cyril hated the Alien series finale. Sucks. Ryan Wilson continuing our Marcos Martin dialogue. Marcos Martin art, he loves it, but I feel like Absolute Batman is Batman for normies. It's a bunch of dumb action. I kind of agree. I'm like, what is the hook of the series? It just feels like punching stuff. I don't really understand the I don't understand. Yeah, next Imagine That. Well, I think I did the Alien Quadrilogy on DVD, and then I got it again on Blu-ray. I'm trying to think if I gave the DVD to my little sibling before he moved here or not. But I have like Prometheus. I just love Alien. I like Xenomorphs. It's my favorite kind of suspense sci-fi. Kane saying Adventure Time's early seasons were simple in terms of plot. It got better as the seasons continued and tackled some tougher themes. Maybe I just started too early and it was kind of at silly stage. James Abel, Amazing Spider-Man #1. It wasn't horrible. The art didn't look very good. Ooh. Shots fired at Pepe Larraz by James Abel, but not much happened. Oh, did look very good. Sorry, shots not fired at Pepe Larraz. Shots retracted, but not much happened. Shots fired at Joe Kelly. I feel like I've seen this plot 100 times before. Yeah, it was a very familiar plot. John Paul say, SM1, if you don't already want to care about Spidey, this doesn't do anything to make you interested in the lives of... Wow, you're coming in hotter than I came in. But I understand why you would say that. Like if you... you know what I think it is, though? It's a comeback to comfort kind of comic. It's not trying to win new Spider-Man fans. It's like, this is a Spider-Man you like. Joe Kelly wrote this 15 years ago and you liked it. I think that's what it is. Javier Hernandez says, it was an okay read. Art was my favorite part. Okay, seems like we kind of have a consensus. No, a lot of you read ASM #1. ASM #1 was a good start. Pepe Larraz's art sells it for me. Joe Kelly's good. Yeah, I think Joe Kelly is just the right tone. For me, Spider-Man is all in the tone. Every modern Spider-Man comic I've picked up always has a businessman villain monologuing without saying anything and how they talk or what they say. Very interesting and astute observation from John Pauls. At the point that Spider-Man is so often pitted against business, it's like, how do you make business new and different, right? Larry Thomas Jr. loves JR when he slows the hell down. And that's maybe why he's better on like one-shot issues or backup stories. I really thought he was lovely on that FF versus Godzilla. Maybe he shouldn't just be doing sequential whole runs anymore. James Abel, Aquaman #4, the artwork almost pops from the pages, but this issue is more of a cat and mouse chase. Lance McNair, I have no idea that I was an Alien fan. Yeah, huge. I am as well. Guessing you enjoyed Jedi Knights #2. We're going to get there. No spoilers. My Spider-Man takes are becoming demon level. Who even knows what I said about that? That got that from John Pauls. Romita does seem to be one of the fastest artists in the industry, apart from Dan Moore, but sometimes speed, it's the project management triangle. You could have it cheap, you could have it good, or you could have it fast. And usually you can only have it 2 of the 3. And I'm promising you, John Romita Jr. is not cheap. So it means that we're getting expensive But that means it should be fast and good, but it's not good. Anyway, that didn't really work out. Okay. I felt like nothing really happened in Aquaman #4, but the art was good, minus the faces. You know what's funny? I do not like John Tim's faces at all, but I love his like detailed weeds, background, ships, dusty rooms. He should just be like a background artist and let somebody else draw the damn faces. Okay. The name changes digs everything Aquaman. I want to love Aquaman. Like, I'm an easy mark. I enjoy that character. If you do anything interesting with him, I really consistently loved him all through New 52 and all through Rebirth, even though some of that was written by Jeff Johns, who I don't usually like. It's not hard to get me to like Aquaman, but this run is having some problems. Okay. Brendan Riley really loved Batman and Robin. Let's get a dissenting voice. Philip Kennedy Johnson is so good at capturing the nuance of father-son relationships, and he actually makes me care about who Damian is beyond the Robin mask. I validate you for feeling that. It is the complete 180 from how I feel about how he writes father-son relationships in Damian. But, you know, I have a very different opinion about father and son relationships in general. If it's working for 90% of the readers and not for me, then it's working for 90% of the readers. And that's why I'm happy you all leave comments here. James Abel, Batman Dark Patterns #5, another outstanding issue. If you're not reading this, why aren't you? This issue even had a Batman 66 Easter egg. Cruel Angel says Dark Patterns Flora gets instant credit in school for having Batman over for Ice-T and talking about the Wizard of Oz. Oh, I forgot about that. There was this great thing where Batman, he's like, the reason the building is having an influence on the people inside the building is they can't see where the voice comes from. It's just somebody talking. But, you know, when a voice is disembodied, people they ascribe more power to it. And the little girl's like the Wizard of Oz. And I was like, oh, what a great script moment of like Batman thinking he's like solved this tricky thing. And this little girl's like this movie. It was just so perfect. Perfect. Written correctly. When I was talking about 3-issue arcs being written correctly, I was referring to my critique of how the 27 run ended with issue #3. I think in 3-issue arcs, it's about like set up in issue #1, promise the thing that's going to happen in issue #2, and then issue 3 either delivers the promise of the thing or violates your expectation of the project promise of the thing. And I think if you haven't done that setup in 2, or if 3 sidesteps and doesn't do either, 3-issue arcs tend to not work. James Abel read Behemoth #3. The storyline from this issue is a copy of the Walking Dead prison arc. A lot of people hate in Daredevil. I don't even need to bring up all of the comments, but I will bring up Brendan Riley. I'm the biggest Daredevil fan on the planet. I do think Tim Burton would wrestle you to the ground for that, but you could both be #1. And I've liked other things that Ahmed has written, me too, but his DD run has been less enjoyable than my wife's 5th grade class lining up to kick me in the crotch. And you know what? I would say that you take it too far, but honestly, if I had to choose between rereading Daredevil 1 through 19 or being kicked in the crotch, let's say 4 times. 4. I would take being kicked in the crotch 4 times. 5, maybe I would prefer to read Daredevil. So it depends on how big the class is, but I am feeling that. The only interesting hero we want to see get around is Darkseid. That was not appropriate for this stream, Charles. I can't believe you got me to read that out loud. James Abel, Doctor Strange of Asgard. They filled this issue to the bone. This series is becoming more and more like a Sherlock Holmes book. Yeah, it really felt like it was packed. I love an issue that has a lot of movement, a lot of scene setups, a lot of things for me to think about. That's the kind of comic book that always appeals to me. Jarn saying Strange's art looks good for 2004. I think it's the saturation level on the colors and the way it's being colored. I think both of them have colors that feel like throwbacky colors. I think Carlos Mango's art is interesting to me because the way he inks it reminds me of like Golden Age art. But I do think many people do not understand how to color, how thick his ink lines are, even in shading, and it kind of makes everything look like weird and unbalanced and ruddy. He's another one like who's that one at DC that I'm always like nobody ever colors him right. That draws the Atom Project. It'll come to me. But he's another one in that same category for me, where I just feel like only certain colorists really, really enjoyed. Then we had all the video problems, which seem to be solved. Those Final Fight characters obviously do like Dick better than Ghostmaker. That was a good one. That one I'll give you. Somehow, James Abel found the guide to Ghost Machine on my site that isn't linked from any pages. I don't know how he does this. He doesn't have a login to my website. He's just magic. Eric Garza saying Marcos Martin, Javier Rodriguez, and Javier Polito are some of my favorite storytellers in comics. And those are the three, I think, that people are like, I didn't like the faces, which is fine. Like the thing that you like, but they often get those reactions. Derek Tyler, by the way, Derek Tyler saying, good evening. Am I pumped for the show, Peter? Am I pumped? Are you pumped? Are we all pumped? I don't know. I hope, let's pump it up. One of my favorite songs, Pump Up the Jam by Technotronic, who's technically the first concert I ever saw because I saw them open for Madonna. Pump up the jam, pump it up while you feel. I used to wear a denim jacket and bring my boombox out to the little mini postage stamp of front lawn in front of my grandmother's house in the middle of Southwest Philadelphia. And I would, I had a whole choreograph that I did, pump up the jam, pump it up with my denim jacket. Crisis lore. Okay. Edwin Billiot, did I read the Alien graphic novel done in the late 70s by Walt Simonson? No, I never have. I would love to. I noticed that when I was building my Alien guide, and I'd never read it. I had never read any of the Dark Horse Alien stuff either. To me, it was just like a film thing. I don't think I even realized how many Alien comics there were until Marvel got the license and started doing the omnibuses. And I was like, whoa, I really just thought it was like a couple of film adaptations and that one like Aliens Soldiers or something series. And I thought that was it. I had no idea that there was so much stuff. Logan Wayne, I know I don't watch TV these days, but I'm looking forward to Alien Show. I do love Noah Hawley. And I do think that is it like Hulu or Stars or something? Because I will be able to watch that here on Disney Plus. We get all of Hulu and Stars and Disney Plus in New Zealand. If it's not, I will have to go hunting. But I am looking forward to that because I do like Noah Hawley. Larry Martin does like Marcos Martin's ASM Brand New Day issues. It took me a bit to get it, but then I liked it. Yeah, I think that's often the case. It takes some time. Richard Fearing checking in and saying hi. Every time I talk about Batman Dark Patterns, I want to buy the single issues, but I'm already set on buying the HC. That is a rare. If they put out a premium deluxe hardcover of that, either just oversized or an absolute, I will buy it because the art is that good. I don't know if I just want a paperback, but if they put it out in a premium format, I will buy it. Richard Fearing, a quarter of the way through 2025 already. Yeah, what's been my favorite read of 20? Well, FML, of course, my number one comic. Yeah, I haven't really been reading that much old stuff because I've been so on the treadmill of doing this, but I'm loving FML. I'm loving Dark Patterns. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I caught up on that I was like, wow. But I don't know. If without a database in front of me, I don't know. And that's why I do the top 12 because I know you're going to ask me these things. I'm like, well, I'll refer to the top 12. I guess probably catching up on Nice House because I did not like Nice House and like that much in its first arc, and I dropped it, I think, by issue 5. So then picking back up and reading issue 6 and then reading the second arc of the original and then getting into Nice House by the Sea, I think I was like, oh wow, like I gave up on this way too early. And so I love that. And also The Deviant by James Tynion, which I talked about a few weeks ago, just messed me up. I still am thinking about it. So I would say Tynion. Tynion is probably the one who's kind of ruling the roost. Jewish Dragons to the Rescue, Mike Perkins is the other artist I'm talking about where I feel like some colors just do not understand how to color him. The Comics Pal said there should be a Patreon tier where we can see me recreate that dance complete with the outfit. So I mean, you're watching. Let's just talk. The Patreon tiers are going to get, I think, a little bit more expensive this year. Not because of inflation, but because there are currently, I think, 99 guides available at the $2 tier that aren't even public. So on one hand, I probably just need to start making some guides public because I do not need 100 guides not public. That's absurd. But B, I just feel like it's so much value and I just don't know of anybody else who like does the thing that I'm doing. So I do think that that's going to come. Also, I don't know how to start a poll on my own channel. I'm in the chat right now. Oh, here we go. Start a poll. Because I was thinking, I don't think I'm prepared for this today. Coming next week, I'm going to start. I have to release some of the guides. Some of them have been private for so long. So starting next week, I'm going to put out a poll for what one should be public. Now, ideally, I would like if you all just join the Patreon. That would be great. But you know what? Money doesn't grow on trees. It is a weird time for everybody. I totally get it if you do not have spare money to support me on Patreon. So since you are my viewing faithful, I think once or twice a month, I'm going to release an existing guide to be public and you can vote on it starting next week. So if there's ones that you really want to see public, they're like, Peter, how dare you hide this from us? We need it, which I think Venom should be at the top that looks personally, but you can decide. Start leaving me comments in the chat here and on the comments afterwards. And based on what people mention the most, those are the 4 that I will put up to vote next week. And you can choose which one will go public. I wish I still had a cool denim jacket. I don't even have it anymore. Yeah, Derek Tyler, Marvel needs to get on those AVP Omnis. It's almost like we're going to be able to vote for them in an upcoming omnibus poll in near mint condition that's going to launch in like less than 2 weeks. Very, very exciting stuff. Patreon inflation. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I feel like the $1 tier for everything X-Men is like, it's so nice that people chip in on it, because now that the fees went up on Patreon, like, sorry to like talk inside baseball business stuff with you, but it's like, I'm getting like 55 cents of that dollar anyway. So if it was like $2, I would actually get a little bit. So I think the 1 is going to become 2, the 2 is going to become 3 or 4. And then there might be the denim jacket tier, which I have an inkling now of what's going to go in it, but that would be probably what it goes out. How do I read this many comics in a week? Well, we've covered this. I, A, have no life. B, have no other pastimes other than exercise and hanging out with my kid and cooking and playing guitar. But all those things, you know, happen around comics. And C, I have a really regimented process. Like, I have a spreadsheet. I have the pull list that pulls right into the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet has links that are already like linked to Amazon search. So I just click the link and it opens right up in Amazon to the issue that I want. And then I hit the buy on Kindle, and then it's Kindle, and I have like a screenshot window already set up. So I screenshot, like, it's just a production line, right? Sometimes I think if you really wanted somebody who says, I want to run more, I want to read more comics, I want to read more prose novels, it's not just the want to do it. It's like, have you made that easy for yourself? Like with prose novels, do you have a bookmark that you like? Do you have a place on your nightstand that you take them? Do you have a nice little bag that you can put the book into so it doesn't get crumpled in your school bag, right? Like, these are the things that help you do the thing. And I just think so often when people want to have a habit, it's not actually about the habit being hard, and it's not about a lack of willpower or even a lack of time. It's about a lack of structure. And I think a lot of times if you put the right structure around a habit, the habit will just happen. I'm a firm believer in that. Okay. What are some books I would vote for in the upcoming Marvel reprints poll? Ooh, well, I really want to fill in the X-Men gaps. I want the book that's going to come after Onslaught Aftermath. I want my Carrie X-Men and Omnibus. I really don't have a lot of wants. I mean, it would be nice to have Spider-Woman and Omnibus. I'm very happy with the Marvel Masterworks. I already got my Dazzler Omnibus last year, which was always my #1 vote. So I don't know if I have a lot of votes left. For me, I want to chuck, you know what my #1 might be? You're going to laugh and think I'm a crazy person. It's Chuck Austin X-Men. We have Extreme and we have New X-Men. We need Chuck Austin X-Men to finish that period. So that might be my #1. Sean from Comics Pals very helpfully reminding me to put up a link to Patreon. It just works with Crushing Crisis, by the way. If you have a Patreon login and you pay for Patreon, you just go on Crushing Crisis and tell it you're from Patreon, and then you get to see all of those guides that are marked Patreon only. Okay, I think we're actually to the very bottom. So great. Awesome. Sean, I know you're a busy man, Sean. So I really appreciate you hanging out and watching. I've been on Sean's Discord. We want to hang out together on stream so bad, and we just haven't figured out the thing to do. I think I'm going to turn up 1 week on Comics Pals. You're just going to turn on Comics Pals and I'm going to be there. But we're going to figure out something to do, because I just enjoy hanging out with Sean so much the few times that I've hung out with him so far. And I want to have a chance to hang out with him that's not with the kayfabe of us screaming at each other, because it's the Evergreen stream. All right, so let me bring up my G through Z, and we're going to talk about that right now. So let me just set that up on screen and then go back in. So as a reminder, I'm going to go into the deep focus mode, although it seems like maybe there's not so many books this week that I can't pay attention to your comments at all. So I will try to catch a couple comments as I go. Okay. This is Geiger. I'm going to start the timer. I didn't read this issue. I actually finished the Ghost Machine guide because I saw this issue and I'm like, ooh, cool radioactive lady. I'm going to definitely want to read that because that's my jam, right? This series for me, pour moi, is so painfully boring to read every issue. I read issue 1 and I was like, it was fine, but I just don't care at all. So last night I was like, I'm going to read issue 13. I had plenty of time. I was wide awake. I just had a delicious dinner. I read issue 2 and I was like, ah! And then I read issue 3 and I was like, ah! And then I read issue 4 and I was, ah! And I had to give up. I just don't care if these people live or die. It is so boring to me. I could not picture a more boring comic book than Geiger. What is the point? We're in this radioactive landscape. This guy is like Daredevil plus Hulk, like he's radioactive and his family died and he can like turn radioactive and beat stuff up. And he's got this knight with him who's stupid and messes things up all the time, but he's his sidekick. There's no point. Like he wants to heal being radioactive. Why? What does that get him? Sometimes he kills a bunch of mutants. Why? What does that do? If we could see him have some motivation for like what he wants to be in the world, I could keep reading this book, but it just feels like Jeff Johns thinks that it should be cool enough that he's radiated. And like, that's not a story. And I understand that people are enjoying it. And also I don't really love Gary Frank's art that much. I understand, especially not colored by Brad Anderson. So to me, it just doesn't hit. Like nothing about it hits for me. And I understand that there are people that like it, but I just don't understand what the motivation to watch these characters are. It just feels like they're getting into all these situations where everything's horrible, which to me is like why I don't like Walking Dead. I don't want to read a comic book about a person I don't like getting into horrible situations and then a bunch of people getting killed. There's nothing fun about that to me. So, okay. Next, we have G.I. Joe, a real American hero. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, because I love the G.I. Joe movie. And one of the reasons I love that movie is because Jinx is introduced in that movie. And this is a silent mission, one of 5 silent mission one-shots from Dan Waters of Batman Dark Patterns with his frequent collaborator, Donnie, colored by Brad Simpson, doing a one-shot adventure of Jinx that's totally silent. This was pretty amazing. Danny's storytelling was so cool here. They did so many cool things with the page layouts and just like the color. Like I love that they took on the challenge of it not only being a silent mission, but really having Brad Simpson like color it in such a knocked back way where there's only a few colors being used. There's one thing about it that I just could not understand or get down with. And it's a very crisis picky thing. It starts out with Jinx seeing that there's 20 seconds on this timer and something's going to explode. And then the convention is that every page is 1 second on the timer, except for that does not make any sense. That could happen in 1 second, but this, her running up the stairs, slicing off the legs and getting past him, that took more than a second. I just think for me, that I would have had more of a suspension of disbelief that if it had been a minute-long timer and we were counting down 5 seconds at a time, because once I went through the whole issue and I looked at all the things that Jinx had to do to get to the end of the 20 seconds, and there's kind of like a funny twist at the end of the 20 seconds, that it just didn't seem like it could have happened in 20 seconds. And also the fun twist wasn't funny enough with only 20 seconds on the clock. I think with a minute on the clock, it would have hit for me more. So it's honestly, that's just one little part of the narrative. The art was cool. The action was cool. It was iconic. I loved it. I want to see it blown up to poster size. Like I want to actually go, when I'm done this, go downstairs and plug my HDMI cable into my television and just see it on the television because it's just so big and bold and iconic. In my mind, I'm just going to pretend that the numbers count down at different speed. A lot of people talking about my reactions in Geiger in the comments, so that'll be really interesting to get to a little bit later. This is already a drop for me. Golden Rage. So Golden Rage. Great David Bowie song. Golden Rage. Pop, pop, pop. Don't let me hear you say less. Taking you nowhere. Angel. Anyway, so this comic has this really cool premise, which is that society has decided it's done with women, doesn't want any older women or uppity women once they're past the birthing years. And if they're infertile in any way, it doesn't want them either. And it's putting them all on an island, which is a really good concept, right, to start with. And so the first series, because there was an original 5-issue mini-series of this, looks into like what society forms in that island where all these women have been disposed of, right? Except for it's not interesting at all. Like there's so many things you could do with that, and it turns into the same, it's just clicky nonsense. And it's got like a little bit of a mothers and daughters thing, but it's like just not interesting at all. Like, and to me, one of my favorite comics that's behind things here, so I can't pull it out, is Bitch Planet, which is similarly like, what if we send all the women we don't want to a place? Bitch Planet by Kelly Sue DeConnick. Amazing comic book. This has the potential to do that, but Chrissy Williams has no story. There's nothing happening. And so then we come back for a second series, and if I thought the first series had no story, this one had even less story. It's basically just like people standing around on an island, and then they put one thing to make the plot a little bit different. It's so pointless. I mean, God bless this team. I love seeing an all-lady team on a book. I think that's really cool. So this is Chrissy Williams' words, art from Lauren Knight, colors from Sophie Dodson, flats by Shane Hannah-Sweet, and letters from Becca Carey. Awesome team. So happy they're working together. Your comic book sucks. Okay. Next, I read The Great British Bump Off Kill or Be Quilt by John Allison. I love John Allison, not from Giant Days, actually. I'm not a huge Giant Days fan. I know him from his webcomic Bobbins, which I used to read religiously back in the day. And I think he has such a great sense of humor. And in Max Sarin, also colors from Sonny Boris, letters from Jim Campbell, he's found somebody who can really sell the jokes. And this was just joke after joke after joke. I loved it so much. It's like this young lady, she's like 19 or 20. She decides she wants to have a summer off. She borrows somebody's boat, and she's going to take this boat through the British channels right? But it turns out she doesn't know how to operate a boat at all or tie the knots. And so the boat gets all scraped up. She's like totally thinks she's like never going to make the money to, and you see as it getting scraped, all the money rising up as lettering from the boat of like how she almost sees the dollars that it's going to cost her. Love that. And so she realizes that she's going to have to get a job. And so there's this boy that she's crushing on where she's tied up her boat. And he's like, my mom has a shop that you can go to. And I love that John Allison and Max Sarin does the thing where they put supernatural elements in a plain story just to sell the joke. Like she's like saying that she might do medical trials, but maybe she'll get scales. Maybe then she can sue them. And so she's drawn as a lizard. And then they're talking about like, should she start playing online poker? And so there's poker cards. I love it because we're always selling the jokes. So she winds up taking this retail job and it's just so funny and cute. But then there's somebody sabotaging the retail job and it's just funny. It's just charming. If you liked Giant Days, this is of a very, very similar tone. And to me, it's the kind of cute slice of light comic book that I really enjoy. Green Lantern Corps is in my, do you guys say corpse? I always see Corps and I want to say Corps, like the Peace Corps. Do people say the Peace Corps? I don't know. Anyway, I was so on the edge of my seat at the end of issue number 2 because they broke open Thanagar and there was a giant gold thing in the middle. Well, I didn't take a shot of the whole thing in this issue because it's such a good payoff that I did not want to ruin it for you, but it is so cool. This is by Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams. Morgan Hampton has the A credit here, so maybe Jeremy Adams is only like really just co-writing, co-plotting. Art from Fernando Passarin with inks from Eau Claire Albert and Jason Paz and colors from Arif Pronto and Rain Barreto. Oh my God, it's going to take me 60 seconds to read all the credits. And Dave Sharp on letters. I just loved this. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. This big giant space nonsense, but also this character, I always forget his name, Atticus Atrocicus. Like he's just this Red Lantern with a lot of teeth who's like a bad guy, but they actually find layers. Like there's actual layers there for him where like he needs his rage. He wants to feel rage, but also he has an amount of affection for the other people that feel rage and he wants to help them express their rage, but he also does not all want to die off. So this does this awesome thing where it like flips the Red Lanterns into being sympathetic characters, which is wild. And it does that in the middle of having this huge space blowout against this giant thing in space. Sorrow is there also nipping at the heels and like making bad things happen. And then there's the whole courts together. There's John Stewart. There's John Stewart. And then there's the issue keeps going and John Stewart's having dessert with the Thanagarian lady and they're talking like there's just so much there. That's why I love Green Lantern Corps. I want to be in space. I want space Jedis. I want to have adventures. I want to see big things. I want bold colors. And this gives me all that. I just love it so much. I don't know who these characters are. I've never even read very much Green Lantern before this. All I know is that every time I read Green Lantern Corps that is drawn by Fernando Passarin, I love it. Okay. Hell's Half Acre. I read the number 1 of this and then I dropped it. It's on Global Comics, so you could read it at no price to you if you've subscribed to Global Comics. It wasn't even a hat on a hat. I just found that I didn't care that much. It's like this guy who's a federal marshal and he's kind of sweet on this lady in a brothel and they actually had a daughter together, but the daughter also works in the brothel. And then this card shark comes, but maybe he's getting some of his card sharkness powers from a deal with the demon. And then the brothel burns down. So the marshal wants to chase after the card shark guy because he thinks it's his fault. But then the daughter, who doesn't know that she's the daughter of the marshal, goes with him and she's like, don't kill it. It's just a lot. It's a lot, which, you know what? I admire a comic. I'm asking for a lot. I'm here asking for a lot from comic books. So I enjoyed how stuffed the first issue was and the art was pretty good. And if this sounds cool to you and you like this idea of this like old West saloon, you know, brothel, and then it gets burnt down and this marshal goes on like a revenge mission, you will like it then. You will like it. But I will say that it just was too much for me. And then I got to the end of the issue and was like, okay, well, he burned down or he didn't at the end. I think it didn't have enough of the devil twist in the first issue. So I didn't really understand like really where we were going. And I was already bored. So I didn't really have a reason to read issue number 2. I don't read The Incredible Hulk by PKJ. And this isn't even with art from one of the normal people. Somebody Walker drew this. Usually the art is either by Danny Earls or Nick Klein. So yeah, but I hate this book. And you know what's really interesting, if I can just linger on this for a second? So I do my weighted average of Marvel, and I keep track of the weighted average at a 6-month span. So at a 6-month running average, who's doing better, DC or Marvel? DC, spoilers, is spanking Marvel. Like they're like 0.5 5 higher than Marvel on average ratings, which is wild because I have dropped my 4 least favorite Marvel books, and I've only dropped, I think, 1 or 2 books from DC. So even Marvel, without the 4 books that I would consistently rate 1 out of 5, of which this is one, Marvel still is the worst publisher in comics for me. That's crazy. That's how bad Marvel is right now. Okay. Except for not Jeff. That doesn't apply to Jeff. I mean, I don't need a minute for this. Jeff goes to a water park. It has this adorable bit where Jeff goes down the big slide and Jeff is like this and he goes into the water. But then, of course, he's a shark in the water and everybody's like, a shark. So Jeff has to figure out how can Jeff responsibly, ethically enjoy a water park and still and not scare away all the people. Adorable. Jump scare. So I kind of forgot how much I was waiting to read this number 2. And I forgot that I wanted to read the original OGN of the Beyond Something universe that they put out in 2024 that introduced this universe. So I just went and read this issue. First of all, I got to just say, this artwork is so good. Like Danny Luckert, art and colors, there's just something about it. There's something like about how she stands off from the background. There's something about just the thick lines of her features and like how much is going on in their features. There's something about how easy it is to follow the action in this comic book. There's something about all these awesome knocked back backgrounds with like the shading dots and stuff. It's just so compelling. There's so much about the stereoscopic background down here that looks like a 3D horror movie, and she's popping out of the front of it. Like he's just doing so much interesting stuff on art. It's really clearly lettered in a way that makes it really easy to read by Jim Campbell. And I like this story that basically all of these heroes in this universe got, superpowers in this one city because it was invaded by this crazy eldritch god. And her superpower is that she just gets to act out the weapons from her favorite horror movies, but that there's other horrific things happening in the city. And there's one horrific thing that's chasing her. There's another horrific thing that wants her to like merge with it. And also this other horrific thing that kidnapped her sister. So there's like so many layers to it. And I love the idea that she's just having fun being this like horror superhero. She doesn't have any objectives for it. She doesn't have any plans. She doesn't have any missions. She's just out there beating people up with her horror weapons because it's fun. But like the universe is forcing her to have plans and to care and to get attached to having a mission to do in the city. That's good comics making. Everything about this is good. The craft is so high. The story is so good. The rhythm of it, the paneling. Cullen Bunn is doing a fantastic job. I highly, highly recommend this. If you like indie takes on superheroes, and if you like the idea of superheroes mashed up with horror, I think that this is so great. It's really just such a fun universe. And I just happened to see this comment come up right now. James Abel says, very good colors. This series is becoming a Spawn book. Say hello to Leviathan Thon. This issue went full supernatural creatures and elements. I totally agree. Next, we come to Laura Kinney Wolverine teaming up with Winter Soldier. This is by Erica Schultz, art from Giada Belviso, colors from Rachel Rosenberg, letters from Corey Petit. And somebody, I believe, corrected me last time I mentioned, I believe Giada Belviso is uses she, her. I think I may have defaulted to he, him, because I just never know with my Italians. They've got names that end with A's, but they're masculine names. I never know. But anyway, this was okay. I think I mostly liked it for the art. It was very quick moving. Like I read it so fast. Basically, Winter Soldier and X-23, Laura, whatever you want to call her, are going through a gauntlet of stuff to get to this bad guy Nazi who wants to kill mutants. It really just didn't have as much texture for the two of them as the previous issue had. It was very much just a burst of action issue, but I respect that because Erica Schultz is doing these little 2-part arcs, and so to have one part of the arc be the personable part and the second part be action works. In the previous arc, it actually was action in the first issue, and then the second issue had the more personality-based stuff. So it totally worked for me. The art was really strong, and it really had some nice moments between Laura and Winter Soldier. I don't think this book is as high achieving as it could be. I think that we could have a slightly better, slightly more interesting Laura book, but at the same time, I know that Erica Schultz has a plan here, and she's like, to keep Laura's book alive, we got to do quick hits. It's got to be filled with action, and people just want to see her being Wolverine. So I get it. I just remember how good her comics have been in the past, and I feel like we could do a little bit more. So I dropped Roman Dirge's Lenore. The first issue was so funny to me, and then the second issue was like it just felt like I read it in like 60 seconds, and I don't have any attachment to this little living dead girl and all of her friends who just like make fun of each other, and they're all dead and they're stuck in ancient Egypt. It was cute. It was very cute. I would absolutely read it on Global Comics. I would absolutely get it from the library, but I cannot pay $4 or $5 a month for it. Marvel Rivals is back with another digital comic issue this week, and it is from Paul Allor, who wrote the originals, with Luca Claretti on art, colors from D. Cummings, and letters from Joe Sabino. This was pretty quick, but y'all, it pulled my particular nostalgia string, because in the Marvel Rivals universe, Krakoa still exists. So Paul Allor, they're smart, they're smart, and so they were like, what if we say that it's time for the Hellfire Gala, and we set this whole second arc of fighting Ultrons and having the Fantastic Four in the game against the backdrop of the Hellfire Gala. Not only that, but has a really good moment from Magic and Ileana Rasputin. So it was like, I came in just expecting more toyetic nonsense, which was really fun to read from the original digital issues. And instead, I got Krakoa and a great moment of magic. Love it. Love it. If you have Marvel Unlimited, go and read it. Please enjoy. Okay. The moon is following us, number 8, as we get closer and closer to the finale of the series from Daniel Warren Johnson, with co-creator and co-artist Riley Rossmo, colors from Mike Spicer, letters from Sean Lee. This issue for me, I wasn't feeling it. I think the problem with this book and having a book that's based in the dreamscape is it just feels like for every issue that something happens in plot, then there's another issue where nothing happens because we're just kind of going around in a circle. And in this issue, we really don't learn anything. We don't get any deeper into the characters. And then we just find this new toyetic thing in the little girl's dream world for the parents to ride on. And then it also gets exploded. I mean, this is literally the 4th time we've seen that same thing happen in this book. It just feels like this maybe needed an editor. I don't see an editor credited, but it just feels like so many of the issues are repeating other issues. And it's a lot. It's a lot to pay this much every month for this book and to not know if we're going to get something original and interesting or something that just feels like it retreads the thing that happened in the prior arc. So I'm excited for this because I love the 2 artists on a single page. That's really exciting for me. There are things I want to find out about it. I want to find out what's happened with all these characters, but this issue in particular really just kind of annoyed me. Phantom Road I don't read because it's by Jeff Lemire. It's back from a long hiatus, and I did have on my list, do I want to catch up on this? Because I do think some of Jeff Lemire's strongest work is with Gabriel H. Walta, and then by the time I got to last night and I tried reading Geiger, and this was the next one, I'm like, I'm not going to subject myself into Jeff Lemire after this. Okay. Well, so Stephanie Phillips is writing what could not only be the worst comic book at Marvel, but perhaps the worst comic book that Jean Grey has ever appeared in, which is saying a lot because Jean Grey has been around since 1963, partly because the art from Alessandra Corey Petit, the letters, I suppose, are fine, but you're implicated in this just because the stink is on you too. The art is horrific. I don't know who's excited by this. If you're excited by this, you need your eyes checked. It's so bad. Alessandro Miracolo cannot figure out how to draw a face the same in any 2 panels. It's like, I've said this before, it's like he's rediscovering faces. He's like, ooh, what's this I'm drawing? For some people, they might have to draw a wheelbarrow for the first time. He's drawing a face for the first time every time he draws a face. Also, Stephanie Phillips has had 10 issues and she still has not found a plot for this comic book. The plot continues to be Phoenix may be getting more powers. Wow. How do you have 10 issues about Jean Grey and the only thing you can think to do is give her more powers? How bad do you have to be at your job? How totally bereft do you have to be of creative ideas? How much do you not need to be writing X-Men comic books when the only thing you can think to do with Jean Grey is to give her more power? More power? Are we watching Home Improvement in the 90s? More power, right? Tim Taylor, that's the only thing I can think of. And I'd rather watch episodes of Home Improvement than read more issues of this comic book. It is one of the worst things I've read in my life. And it's not just because I like Jean Grey. It's because it has no clue of what's happening. What actually happened in this comic book? Apparently, she already defeated Thanos. That almost happened entirely off panel. Now she's just arguing over whether she should give the Phoenix power to Aldani or whether Aldani should have any power at all. It's just, it's so absurdly horrible. And it just makes me angry that anybody is reading it or supporting it because Marvel needs to know that this is an orange pool noodle. Here's another page where Alessandro Miracolo discovers anew every time what faces are. Does he talk to people's buttholes? Does he go around the day looking at people's asses and speaking directly into their rectums and he's never seen a face or what lips look like before? I don't know, but his art is so bad and the writing is so bad. And let's talk about how bad the colors are for a second. What is this nonsense where this black uniform, Jean Grey and black would look so cool. But David Curiel is just like pasting on this like stars thing onto her costume, and then sometimes giving it a little bit of a motion blur. It looks so bad. Like if you look at down here, it's just a bunch of like blurry slashes because there's no actual color effect. He's just like putting a blur. It's every single thing about this comic book is the absolute nadir of what Marvel is capable of right now. And the fact that this is the X-Men comic book that's making it to issue 11 over X-Force, X-Factor, and NYX really shows me how broken everything is, because you know what's happening? Jean Grey fans like me are just showing up and buying this comic. Marvel is taking that signal and they're putting more of this absolute excrement out into the marketplace. Shame on you if you like this comic. I don't usually come for your personal taste, but there is nothing here to appreciate. And if you want this, you would enjoy any slop that Tom Brevoort shovels into a bucket for you and hands you and buries your face in, because if you can think that this is a good comic, you don't have any taste in comic books. Okay. Let me just compose myself. All right. Okay, let's continue. Next is Spawn. I really like this issue. Oh no, first is the Return of the Living Dead. I don't read this. I just love the covers. Okay. Next we come to Spawn. This Spawn, I have to say, a lot of times the main Spawn comic book like just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I feel like this really does. Like Todd Father has really zeroed in on the conflict here. It's a little bit of a bait and switch because there was a big cliffhanger at the end of the last one about Spawn's wife Wanda. But I have to say, I just got lost in the colors of this page. Brett Booth, I don't feel like usually gets a colorist who's like a really nuanced colorist. They're really just trying to make everything pop and look shiny. But the colors here from Robert Nugent, who is the regular Spawn colorist, just it's so subtle. Like there's just so many layers to how her face is shaded. There's just like the way like in the shadows that it's a little bit green. I just get really obsessed when people do really, really good shading on faces, especially faces of people of color, and where there's really a chance to like build some richness into the colors. I just think the colors on this were beautiful. And I really got a sense of like what the stakes are for Spawn here, that Spawn is just being manipulated. He thinks this is a big badass because he's got all these powers, but the powers were given to him and taken away from him from other people, and Nyx just gave them back because Nyx wanted something, and Spawn doesn't quite do what Nyx wanted, and so Nyx is like, well, F that, I'm just gonna get my way anyway, and basically puts, you know, a huge amount of humans in peril to try to manipulate Spawn into doing the things she wanted him to do. Spawn, for me, works when we actually see reasons for Spawn's motivation, and we understand that he's not just this badass that goes around pointing at things and being like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And so because this was connected to his motivations, and we realized that he was not this all-powerful, always right god, to me, this worked better than like the whole past year of Spawn. Spider-Gwen, very, very fun kind of like pulp comic cover here by Mark Brooks, who I love. Stephanie Phillips writing this one too, heaven help us. Von Randall, artist. And I just want to say, I like a lot of Stephanie Phillips indie stuff. I'm loving Grimm. I liked a lot of her individual indie series for Aftershock back in like 2018, 2019. So I was so excited to see her write for Marvel, but I just don't, whatever the Marvel system is, like whatever it's like to write at Marvel, I just don't think it's like she's vibing with it. Maybe she would grade at DC. A lot of people moved to DC from Marvel recently. This issue really crystallized my problems with her writing, which is that she pretty much introduces an idea here. And it's a cool idea that there's this seeming utopia, but the utopia, of course, has a seedy underbelly, that they're doing something that Spider-Gwen would not appreciate. And so Spider-Gwen is going to want to disrupt it. And Loki, King Loki here is betting on that because he's trying to get her to use the powers of the Cosmic Cube even more. But that's it. It's just the idea of that. And then the whole rest of the issue is basically Spider-Gwen screaming like, I'm reacting to that. I'm reacting to that. I'm reacting to that. But like, she doesn't really do anything and nothing actually really happens. It's just her saying like, huh, I'm reacting. Huh, reaction. Huh. And there's no more story. And I recognize actually that's a lot of what I've found in the Stephanie Phillips comics for Marvel, that she kind of writes this like interesting status quo. And then the whole issue is characters being like, I am reacting to that status quo. I have a reaction to that status quo. That is a status quo I would react to. And then nothing happens. Like we don't like learn anything about the character. The universe doesn't grow and change. There's no interesting conflicts. We're just basically sitting around talking about reacting to things. That to me is what, and then spoilers, the final page of this has Jean Grey arrive. And then if you heard the noise of sadness and resignation that came out of my body when I saw that I also was going to have to read Jean Grey, written by Stephanie Phillips, in this comic book, in addition to in Jean Grey, I flames in the side of my face. That's all I can say. Okay, let's keep moving. I don't read Star Trek Lower Decks. I did read Star Wars Jedi Knights, and this was my top Marvel pick of the week. The only reason this was not my final Marvel pick of the week is it was mostly an action sequence. That said, Mark Guggenheim is writing the hell out of this, sentences I never thought I would say in the English language. Majibek Musabekov, his art is maybe the best likenesses I've seen anybody do in Star Wars since Marvel took over the likeness, or took over the license. Luis Guerrero on colors, great colors. Clayton Cowles, very readable. This is basically just Yoda on this really cool mission with Vecna Mooncrest, and they basically fight what are more or less xenomorphs, but it's great because it just shows us, so Yoda is not always right, but Yoda is a good problem solver, which I do think is a really good way to write Yoda. The action was incredible. It gave us a little bit of this subplot with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, where Obi-Wan is having visions of something that might kill Qui-Gon. Of course, we know as a reader what ultimately kills him. So we know when we see this thing, that doesn't look like Darth Maul killing him. So like as the reader, we have more information than the characters, and we're like, well, he's not really going to die. So why is Obi-Wan so convinced he's going to die in this way when we all know that that's not how he dies? Really great rhetorical construct of the story there. Really great artwork, really great action. And it just really, I want to spend, and I've said this so many times already, I want to spend 100 issues in this immediately prequels world, because I think this is the Jedi who are effective, but they're very high on their own supply, and that's what leads to their downfall. So I want to see them kind of like thuddingly stumble through solving some things across the galaxy, and maybe the solution actually works, but they're just setting up the level of distrust that leads them into the entanglement they get into in the prequels, which leads to their downfall. I want to read that. I love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Next, we have Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant. So the thing that I feared would happen on this title seems to be happening, which is Mariah Aodell had a tremendous first arc that he was like, you know, you have your whole life to write your first album. It was so good. It read like poetry. It was so interesting. There's so many big moments for Storm that let us get to know her better. And now that we're past that arc, it just feels like he's scrambling for ideas. And I do like Luciano Vecchio's art here. I think with strong colors and letters, but all this issue really is Storm gets recruited to go after some like mutated animals who took the super soldier serum. And then she fights with some gods. I mean, it looks great. This is the best Maggot has ever looked. Drink this in. This is the best Maggot has ever looked on a panel. Storm looks really good. Great. Alex Guimarães and Fuerteventura Sujo, great colors, but it's just, something happened. I don't want to come to you and say this is one of these nothing happened comics, but there's all this buildup that like Storm was going to die and then she was going to be cosmic or other. And we just get her being Storm here, but then she fights off the gods. But it just feels like it just felt like a one-shot filler issue. And especially coming off the issue that was last month's issue that was a tie into X-Manhunt, it feels like now we've gone 2 issues where we had all of this buildup in the first arc. And not only does it not go anywhere, but it just doesn't feel like there was a plan. And I understand that that's partly because Aodell's flow kind of got interrupted by X-Manhunt, but I just was loving this comic so much. I was saying it was the best comic in the industry at points during the first 5 issues. And now it just feels like a comic with Storm in it, which is fine. I don't hate it. It's not bad, but it just feels like there could have been more. I did read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Night Watcher. This is the, I think, last issue because it said the end at the end. I haven't checked to see if there's more solicited yet. I don't think Junie Ba and I exist in the same world as each other. So in this one, Jenica has been carrying around this Night Watcher armor, and this whole series is like built up that like she's defending the city, but is it Night Watcher defending the city or is it her defending the city? And here Night Watcher's like, just put me out of my misery. I didn't ask to be a robot. And she's like, well, I didn't ask to be a turtle necessarily, but there's no there. Like they just have this conversation. They have a bunch of action where they're fighting each other and just talking for pages and pages that doesn't advance the plot at all. Drawn kind of badly, if I'm being honest, by Faro Pei. And then it just ends with him Jenica being like, I guess the people in your life matter to you. I just hate getting to the end of a series and realizing that even though I liked it and was like on its side, at the point that the artist and the writer had no plan and then kind of doesn't go anywhere. And I get to the end, I'm like, well, that was a waste of my time. And that is how I felt about Junie Ba's writing here. I did finally catch up all the way on Transformers. And the thing that you need to understand about me is that I don't know who any of these Transformers are. I did not have Transformers as a kid, so I don't have any nostalgia the way I do for Jinx and G.I. Joe, like telling me this is cool. But here's the thing I do have here. I loved the art from Ludo Lullaby. What a name, Ludo Lullaby. Because this whole series has been in this very scratchy Daniel Warren Johnson style. He only drew the first arc, but then George Corona, I think is the name of the artist who's done it since then. Sometimes I just cannot follow the art. And here's some art from like 10 issues ago. I cannot tell what's happening here. Like I see Optimus Prime, Soundwave, I think is like punching him. This other person is jumping. The constructors are doing something here. There's somebody over here. Maybe the constructor bot turned fully into its car form, so it somehow goes past him and hits him over there. But then it looks like he should be hitting Optimus, because the thing we just saw in this panel was this guy arm barring Optimus. So how did this go all the way around there? But then we see him picking up to Optimus. So I never can tell what's happening. And the fact that I don't think their likenesses are that different. They're all colored really similarly. I know that they're faithful to the Transformers that they are. I can never tell what's happening in this book. And I like the big beats of the story. This whole thing about like the Decepticons have dissension in the ranks and they're trying to open a portal to Cybertron, and that Optimus Prime is like basically all the Transformers have PTSD. I mean, it's a Daniel Warren Johnson book, so of course they do, but they all have different kinds of PTSD and they're all dealing with that in different ways. And some of them want to go back to Cybertron and defend it, but Optimus Prime is like, no, we should care about these little humans. Like, I love all the plot beats. I just so often look at these pages and I have no idea who anybody is or what they're doing on the page. I say all of that because in this issue with art from Ludo Lullaby exploring what's been, where has Megatron been all this time? It was just delightful. It was really interesting. He's trapped in this like eternal suffering tournament where they're trying to like beat him down. And he's got like so much, you know, like vigor and so much audacity. He's like, you're never going to defeat me. But they beat him down until they force him to turn into the gun form that he makes, which I've always thought is so weird. Like, why does he turn into a gun? But like, this is Daniel Warren Johnson being like, I'll tell you why he turns into a gun. And it's so cool. It was so cool. And of course it had this beautiful hot pink cover, which I love. And Adriano Lucas is the colorist on this. I do believe Mike Spicer is usually the colorist. So this was a totally different art team. It just made me think maybe the whole like rough-hewn Daniel Warren Johnson world is just not the Transformers that I would love. Maybe I want to see the Transformers look smooth. Maybe if they were more smooth and metallic and less gritty and metallic, I would have been liking this whole series even more, because I really found myself compelled by this. And again, I love the plot. And if you do have a history with the Transformers, maybe you really are loving this. I don't know. I'd like to hear in the comments from you if that is the case. Jeremy Kulau just happened to see this comment pop up. Says, I do have 40 years of history with Transformers. I just can't get into the series. It's too mean. That's really interesting. I do think it's really taking advantage of the fact that they can rip each other apart constantly because they just get remade. And I'm like, every time one of them like stabs you through the heart or like drinks the energon off of one of them, I'm like, ooh, that's kind of dark for a Transformers comic book. But I just assume maybe that's what Transformers people want. I don't know. I'm not a Transformers person. So it's interesting to see somebody who's like a historic Transformers person saying that they're not really into that vibe. Well, your disagreement with me as a group is going to continue, because this Ultimates issue, this was garbage, mama. This is terrible. This was so bad. It was bad. And not because I don't like poetry. I like poetry a lot. I have written a lot of poetry. I'm a songwriter. I write things that rhyme all the time. This free verse from Dennis Camp was so cringe. It was so cringe. I appreciated the thing that he was doing, that he wanted to tell the whole story of Thor and Sif starting a revolt throughout the realms against their ultimate version of King Loki. And he didn't want to devote a whole series to it. So he's just going to do it as a series of one for Jerry and Federico Blee splash pages that are going to have this poetry over them. But the poetry, it didn't scan. And when you say that something doesn't scan, it means like something about it, reading it to yourself in your head or reading it out loud, it's not pleasant. It's not just that it doesn't have meter, but like the words don't word well. Next came Vanaheim, fields of fertile life lords, the Vanir, dirt forever under fingernails, gods of harvest, hearth, birth. Thor and Sif came recruiting, constituting God's own guerrilla army to lay low Loki Leifison and free 9 worlds one by one. Like, it just doesn't, it's not pleasant in the mouth. And I think that one of the things that's important about poetry is that it has to be pleasant in the mouth. Like, when you read it silently to yourself, it almost has to make you want to say it out loud. And I just don't, I think Camp, if this was Camp's idea, there are poets out there who are comic book fans that you could recruit to be a part of this effort with you. I mean, Stephanie Burt springs to mind immediately. Doesn't she teach at like Harvard or something? Like, it just felt like such a weak sauce version of this idea because Dennis Camp doesn't have the tools in his arsenal to execute this thing as well as it should be executed. Great art. Really, really cool art from One for Jerry. And Blee, I didn't see a blue glow on really a single page of this. I think Blee is cured. The blue sickness, it's gone. Rejoice, villagers. But I thought this comic sucked, and so that is why it is not in my top 12 anymore. I don't read Uncanny X-Men, which is the most painful language in the English language to me, or most painful sentence in the English language to me. But not only is it written so bad, but now we're just fully admitting that this book is not actually about X-Men. It's just a New Mutants book. So change the fucking title then. Okay, Vatican City. I like the Vatican, stuff about the Vatican. I like stuff about vampires. It took me so long to realize that this guy's chin was like this and his neck was being cut. And I was like, ooh, I wonder if that's the interior artist. Then it is. And I looked up a preview of it. And we know I don't love Mark Miller. And then to see that the art just looked like this on the inside, I was like, well, if I can't even tell what the cover is happening on the cover, and the cover is by the interior artist, that's why I want covers by the interior artist. Because I knew that I wouldn't like this book. And so I didn't get it. Also, Rob Liefeld supposedly is bringing Youngblood back, and it's solicited with the Image logo, but it's actually, I think, just being sold directly by Liefeld on his Whatnot shop, and it's $20 an issue, and there's no digital version available of it. So it really begs that he did this last year with his Final Blood that he did 2 or 3 one-shots of. It really begs the question for me, like, is there actually any story that's going to be in this? I don't know, because it wasn't available digitally. Or is it just his way of fundraising now that he's got these IP back? And you know what? I respect that. Rather than going to a Kickstarter, he's just fundraising by like making these cool artifacts and selling them for $20 to people. But ultimately, it is $20 for a 32-page comic book, and it's going to have art from Rob Liefeld inside of it. So I don't know how much of a sales pitch that is. I do love Youngblood, and I if it was digital for $20, I don't know if I could bring myself to buy it. I maybe would pay $8. Maybe even $10. But I think that it's funny to me that he's doing this thing. It's so hard to find. Like, you have to, like, it's like this alternate reality game to even know it's for sale or like know where to get it. Cause I don't even know if it was available through previews. I just think, like, what is he so afraid of to do like a traditional Kickstarter or backer kit or something if he's got to fundraise? Like, there are definitely more than a couple of hundred people who have affection for Youngblood, but he's printing these issues in like 100-issue batches and like selling them. And it's just a crazy plan to me. It kind of feels like what Bad Idea is doing, which is the worst idea in all of comic books, which is just selling comic books that you never know what they are or where they are, or if you're going to be able to get them or not. And I guess that's a good way to sell out of your run. And I guess for every comics he sells, every 100 comics at $20 a pop, he makes $2,000. So I guess that's really good for him. But I just don't understand what the long-term plan is here, other than a quick fundraising thing. And I feel like he's got a bet. He's Rob Liefeld. He can make more money than that if he marketed this correctly. So you know what? Go be your weird self, Rob Liefeld. I guess the only way I'll ever get to read this is if somebody scans it and pirates it, because I don't know how I can even get a copy here in New Zealand. But I want good things for Rob, and I want good things for Youngblood. So maybe eventually I will get to read it. And guess what, y'all? That's the end. I told you it was a short poll this week. So let me scroll up to where I remember that I left off. A New Mutants Volume 1 reprint. Well, the reprint poll, Electric Alpha, hello to you, opens tomorrow on near mint condition. I forgot what time, but I'm going to be on it. So whatever time I'm on near mint condition, that's when it opens, and you can vote for it. I'm sure New Mutants Volume 1 will do well. It was very hotly demanded when it first came out, but if you want it, you got to vote in the poll. Marvel does get the list from Omar, and in the past, they have paid attention to that. What is my favorite period of LaRocca art? I don't love Extreme X-Men with him because I don't like that shiny period of colors. There's been some good LaRocca issues currently, but you never know if you're going to get weird Tracy LaRocca, like on the Star Wars books, where he's like, you literally can see the blur of like the video frame that he grabbed in the background, or if you're going to get him just drawing something cool. I think didn't he draw like a Kang miniseries recently that I really liked him on, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge LaRocca fan. I don't know that I have a favorite LaRocca era. I know I haven't enjoyed him that much since 2015 up until the past couple of years. Richard Fearing say, may as well do a Chuck Austin run. I really got the 3 trades. So yeah, you're saying like I bought the trade, so clearly the omnibus is coming. All of my top new and wanted reprint omnis are Star Wars related. Well, Star Wars, has a wonderful line of legends, which I think they will keep putting into print because there's always more Star Wars fans who realize that there's omnibuses out there. And honestly, they're getting to pretty good coverage of the Marvel year stuff in omnibus as well. So that is pretty great. Academy X, another omnibus that I'm probably going to be voting pretty high on that poll. Larry's Library, can't imagine Gary Frank art being boring. I can, but it's just not my style. There's something to everything just looks so gritty and dirty and grimacy. I want to see some beauty occasionally. Even Daniel Warner Johnson, with as gritty as his books, there's some beauty sometimes. Lance McNair doesn't buy Omnis, so may just do an Inhumans charity vote for Geo. Look, those two Inhumans classic omnibus, I mapped them myself. They would be great. You would get a 2-book set of every single Inhuman story and appearance from their inception all the way through the year 2000. It would cut off, or year 1998, because it would cut off right before the Jay Lee Inhumans. They would be great reads. Highly, highly endorsed. Comics Fail saying, definitely don't read Doomsday Clock if you don't even enjoy Gary Frank's art. Yeah, I did. Well, as you saw, on your Discord, I posted some of my reactions to the original, and I think one of them was like, not even the art could make me care about it. Unwritten, talk about things that I always have within arm's reach. I love Unwritten, which was Mike Carey doing a riff on Harry Potter, which is also kind of a riff on books of magic. Really, really good. Honestly, if you know people in your life who talk about Harry Potter all the time and you wish they would stop, get them the Unwritten Compendium Volume 1 and hand it to them and be like, this is like a much more thoughtful, interesting version of Harry Potter. Logan Wayne, wow, everyone I've heard talking about Geiger made it out like it's one of the greatest things ever. This is a refreshing change. Well, again, we all know part of the reason you all find me interesting, apparently, is I just do not have the normal mainstream taste in comics. There are certain authors that everybody likes that I just cannot figure out what's good about them. And it's like, drives me crazy. And I won't even know. That's the crazy thing. Like, a lot of these times I will now, of course, I know it because I'm online and I live in this world. But a lot of times I'll go off and read something on my own and have no idea what the reaction was to it, whether it's a reaction to an author that everybody likes or a reaction to a certain book. And I'll come back and be like, okay, that sucked, right? And then I don't learn that everybody else liked it until I get online, and that is just wild to me. And there's just something about me. I don't do it to be different. I would love it if everybody agreed with me. That would be so much more exciting. But I just don't know. It's just how my brain works. Yeah. Awesome art. Yeah, Danny's art in that G.I. Joe one-shot was so cool. Hank, I'd like to have that Victor Gischler, X-Men Vampire Era in omnibus. The tricky thing about that is you probably could do that whole series in one omnibus because it was 42 issues, but would you map it just as all of X-Men 2010, or would you map it as Victor Gischler's stuff and all the Vampire Sideline stuff and then cut it off around issue 26 where he stops writing? Because then the next part is by Brian Wood, who continues writing X-Men into X-Men 2013. So would it actually make more sense to basically have a Victor Gischler Vampire Era book and then also separately have a Brian Wood book? That's just, there's no good answer. Both of the answers work. Both of the answers make an amount of sense. So I forget what we did on the poll because we're almost done putting all the poll options together. The name changes have been digging everything Ghost Machine, Redcoat, Rook, Exodus, Geiger, Hornsbrain Halo, and the Rockefellers. However, it was a go-go checkered top that made me take notice. I really, really like Rockefellers. I dropped Hornsby and Halo after issue number 5. I'm going to try to enjoy Redcoat again, even though I hated the first 2 issues so much, because I do like Brian Hitch's art. I think it's the best his art has looked in over a decade. And I have not yet read Rook Exodus, but I love Jason Fabok, so I'm going to try that as well. But Geoff Johns just doesn't usually super appeal to me, so I like that other writers are in there too, like Peter Tomasi, because, yeah. And also Hyde Street. Stoops like Hyde Street a lot. Lance McNair is keeping his expectations in check, but becoming a lot more sold in the upcoming F4 movie with the Entertainment Weekly promos, interviews. Movies can be cool as a thing, I hear some people say. Last GM far behind, but that Alien movie adaptation where Archie Goodwin and Walter Simonson, published by Heavy Metal Books. Yes. The first time I said that your comic book sucks to somebody on the stream, I think that was even before Phoenix. I don't even remember what I was saying. Jarn says it's corpse with a P. James Abel saying, oh, I was saying the Golden Rage sucks. The series felt like Lost, but with only old women. It was okay, but nothing special, mostly set up. But now Jeremy Kulo saying core. See, totally no agreement. And Jarn Paul saying it's a weird American word. Who knows anyway? Eric, hello, Eric. Those are Vampirella books behind me. I'm actually... This week, the new guide on Crushing Crisis is supposed to be finally the much clamored for Vampirella guide. I don't know if I'm going to finish it. So I have another one in my back pocket. So there might be a Marvel guide first because there was a Marvel guide that was a little bit easier that I also have had people ask me for a lot of times. But Vampirella is getting close. Her time is near. James Abel on Jump Scare. Good colors. The series becoming a... Oh, we already saw that one. Casey here. Hello, Casey here. DC's crushing Marvel right now. I agree. The quality of DC, if you could pick an average DC book and an average Marvel book, just on the law of averages, the DC book will be better every time. James Abel, Laura Kinney, Wolverine #5. The series is just fun to read, and it's almost like a popcorn movie. Next issue looks to bring back a great character. Cruel Angel says, Laura, team up. Some people need to be stopped permanently. Yeah, that was a pretty good scene. Okay, so I'll give Erica Schultz even more credit. There was some good writing. The Moon is following us, #8. The power of a child's imagination is at play here. Welcome, Pennycorn. They better not pull a Saga 54 on me. Yikes. Phoenix #10. This bad story arc is over. The ending got me. I'm somewhat interested in what's going to happen next. Max, Phoenix #10. LOL, but sad. And then a lot of people said, uh-oh, all in a row, because they know when I take that deep a breath, you know I'm about to... Oh no, the video quality died. Sometimes I think, I know it doesn't really work like this, but I think the louder I scream, the internet, like I like disrupt the Wi-Fi with my screaming. Maybe I'm Black Bolt. I don't know. And apparently the internet was wigging out. Comics Pals is right there with me on Phoenix. Jean is my favorite character in comics. This is not... See, I knew there was a reason I loved you, Sean. Jean is also one of my favorite characters in comics, and it's just not Jean. Not only not Jean, it's not interesting. It could, even if it was some other character, it wouldn't be interesting. Okay. Everybody liked the Home Improvement reference, apparently. And apparently I got really loud. Sorry, I should not exist in the world without compression. I have a rack compressor right there, but my rack compressor and my preamp doesn't work with this computer. So I am getting a new computer soon. I just need one. This one is like dying. So I think when I get a new computer, I'll be able to use my compressor with it again. And then I will be at a nice, consistent volume again. Okay. Everybody reacting to me just totally losing my mind about how much I hated Phoenix. But then, deep breath of fresh air afterward, John Paul's loving Yoda. Edwin Billiot saying, Peter, you need to read the Star Trek comics. They're great. To me, Star Trek is a thing I see on a screen. I've never read a Star Trek novel. I've never read a Star Trek comic. I've never played a Star Trek video game. To me, it's like exclusively a TV show and a movie. And I just think I've never like shifted my brain out of that mode. And I don't know if I am going to enjoy it as a comic. Tell me which one has been the best. Which of the series has been the best? The Christopher Cantwell one, Lower Decks, the Lansing and Jackson one, whatever one you all tell me is the best. I will read that one the next time there's a new issue. Lance McNair, who I bullied relentlessly across multiple social media networks to read that Star Wars Jedi Knight series. And he says he loved Jedi Knights issue #2. It's my first Star Wars series in years, and it captures the feel very well. I also like this Vecna Mooncrest character. Well, I'm so happy I bullied you so effectively. James Abel saying Storm #7, the Battle of the Thunder Gods has begun. Let lightning strike down anyone who gets in Storm's way. Also, Silver Surfer Soot. What a nice... Yeah, the Vecchio's art was really cool. I just feel like he evolves and evolves and evolves even more all the time. Gianni, hello to you, my friend. Richard Fearing just saying the Energon universe is fun, man. It's just fun. It's fun. John Paul says, when I tried to read Transformers Phase 1, I also had trouble figuring out what and who. Yeah, if there's ever a comic book that just needs chyrons to pop up next to them to just say what their name is, if it just said their name next to them at the beginning of every issue, or if it had a cast page with them in their colors, I know I could follow it. But it just sometimes they'll go a whole issue and they won't say which one is which. And not to mention, one of them is Soundwave and one of them is Starscream. Like, I know the names are just the names that they are, and they've been the names since the 80s, but I really struggle. And I am face blind and name blind to begin with in real life and in comic books. I sometimes can read a comic book for like years and not be able to tell you the name of one of the characters. I'm like that about TV shows all the time, like Severance, which I just watched. I know the one person's name is Helly R. I don't know anybody else's name. I'm like, that one, the round one, the gay one, that I never know their names. Never, ever, ever know their names. So to combine my name problem that already exists with the fact that they're all just these blocky robots, I really, really have trouble with that. Stoops, Ludo. Pink is one of my favorite colors too, especially on a comic book cover. Crisis should give the IDW Transformers a try. Might be more my jam. I've heard nothing but rapturously positive things about IDW Transformers, but there's only so many hours in a day. The Comics Pals, I was frustrated by Ultimates. It's my favorite series in the stands, but it's losing me with these side quests and tangents. The poetry also didn't work for me. I appreciate the attempt, I guess. Reaper also wants pre-prequels stories. James Abel did read Uncanny X-Men 13, broken up into 3 parts. Henrietta Benjamin, Gambit and Rogue, and New Mutants, and Gambit part was the weakest part of the issue. Gianni P. Gale's X-Men is certainly a comic book that is coming out. Said very well in a very diplomatic way. Jerome Parles dropped Uncanny after 12. Rogue and Gambit's voices are too annoying, but I did like parts of it. Lance McNair can hear Ricky Ricardo saying, "Ay, ay, ay," in dismay whenever Uncanny X-Men comes up. I love Lucy, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Lucy! Reaper X, also not a fan of Junie Bob. Nothing I've read has gripped me or entertained me. Yes, same. Logan Wayne, I genuinely wonder if Gail Simone knows how the larger X-Men fan base feel about her run, because she gets and reposts a lot of comments on Blue Sky saying how amazing. Well, here's the thing. It's not her job as a writer to know that we're disappointed. Like, if you're name searching yourself as an X-Men writer, you're asking for pain, which she does. And I know that because she blocked me because I favorited somebody else who did not at her, but mentioned they did not like Uncanny X-Men by her, and then I got blocked the next day. So Gail, stop name searching. It's not healthy. I don't do it anymore. I'm just a small-time internet person with a couple 100,000 views on my webpage every month, and I know better than to name search Crisis, because there are people out there who hate my guts, and if people hate me, I'm sure there's people who hate you, Gail Simone, so just stop name searching. But anyway, my point is, they don't need, all that matters is if they ever find out that their book is the orange pool noodle. So long as Uncanny X-Men is the book people expect to buy, and so long as stores keep ordering it in huge amounts, that's all Gail Simone needs to know. Our opinions on the book only matter if they start languishing on the shelves and the stores start dropping the orders. That's the only time she's going to care about our opinions, or Tom Brevoort is going to care, or anybody's going to care. The Marvel reprint poll, oh, thank God it's at 6 p.m. I thought it was at 2 p.m., which is now 6 in the morning for me. So it's at 6 p.m. tomorrow, which means I will have enough time to eat some breakfast. Edu Lorena says, do I think Marvel will ever reprint most of their catalog? I think that we're lucky that we're getting to the 90s now, as people such as myself who have purchasing power and care about the 90s are expressing that they have the money to buy the stuff. That's how we got Epic Collections. And we've all supported the Epic Collections, and now the Epic Collections are like moving into the early 2000s, and people keep buying them. They're only ever going to collect things that people buy, and they'll sometimes put up a test balloon of like, what if we did this obscure 90s thing, right? They did the Darkhold as a trade paperback. They're doing the Blade Epic line. If tons of people turn up for the Blade Epic line, if tons of people turn up for the Ghost Rider Epic line and the Ghost Rider Omnibus, we will get all of those Midnight Suns things collected. They have to collect Night Stalkers. They have to collect Morbius. There's so much to collect there, right? And if people buy them, we'll get them. The thing that's funny to me is, like, will we ever get the really obscure stuff? Will we ever get Marvel UK? I love Marvel UK. I would buy every omnibus. I already have the Knights of Pendragon omnibus. Could we ever get a Death's Head 2 omnibus? I think the thing that's tricky about that is, what signal could Marvel have from the market that there is a market for the Death's Head 2 omnibus? What signal did they have for Knights of Pendragon? They basically marketed it because they knew Captain Britain was going to be in some X-Men comics, and it was an opportunity to get a book out that had Captain Britain on the cover in addition to the Captain Britain omnibus. Sometimes their reasons are arcane, and sometimes they're really, really plain. So unless somebody puts Death's Head 2 on the Avengers, which would be cool, get on it, Jen McKay, I don't know that we could ever see a Death's Head 2 omnibus. But I think for other things, like, could they collect a bunch of sideline Spider-Man miniseries together? Could they collect all of Spider-Girl and then do another collection of the MC2? They have signals, sales signals, that could tell them if those would be a good idea, but everything's a chance right now, especially with maybe existing in this world of tariffs. I don't think we're going to see a lot of companies taking a lot of chances on books at the beginning of 2026, because we've already got announced through the end of 2025. I think the books announced at the beginning of 2026 are going to be sure sellers. I think we're going to see some greatest hits. I think we're going to see some omnibuses everybody has asked for. We're going to see things by Tom King. We're going to see things from Jason Aaron. We're going to see things from Daniel Warren Johnson. I think Marvel and DC and Image are going to be putting a lot of very obvious books at the beginning of 2026. LaRocca's terrible tracing art put me off those Star Wars books, Lance McNair says, which were otherwise pretty good. Yeah, Jody Hauser, who sometimes takes a little heat from me for just being the queen of adaptations. I think actually the best of her adaptations are the adaptations of the Star Wars TV shows, because I think she just shows a keen eye to edit them down to what really matters. But I was so bummed that the Obi-Wan book had that awful Tracy art that he didn't even erase the colors from the thing he was tracing by LaRocca, because I think it was so much tighter than the actual Obi-Wan TV show. So I was like kind of bummed that the art was not that good. Don't look up Gary Frank's Legion of Superheroes art. I won't. Lance McNair, another example of more thoughtful Harry Potter is the manga Witch Hat Atelier, which gets an anime this year. Very, very cool. Brandon Riley, Jedi Mind Trick, Peter, Daredevil, Cold Day in Hell is a book you are looking for. So many people said it was good last week that I might have to read it when issue number 2 comes out. This takes so much time and it costs so much money. And if there's a book that's an alternate universe book and I can just skip it and read it later, because if it's an alternate universe book, from my perspective in the comic book guides, it just goes down in the bottom in the non-continuity section. Every newer guide has a non-con section. It's hashtag non-con is the anchor to it. So I always know where to anchor to. And that's where all the books that don't affect continuity go. And if there's a book that doesn't affect continuity, it means I don't need to know how to talk about it on the guides. So that's why I just usually skip them. But everybody I know said that Cold Day in Hell was really good. And I love Charles Soule writing Daredevil. So it might happen. I used to love covering like random R&B and guitar because they all have back when R&B had and rap had like a good hook underneath of it, and you can actually like find the tonality or the musicality of the song. I remember in my dorm room, we used to crank this Busta Rhymes album and I would just play it on guitar as we were listening, because Busta's music tend to have like really good musicality to it. And there was something to play. I love Lauryn Hill. We were talking about that on Omni Dog stream last week. I have the sheet music actually to Lauryn Hill. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I will not try to do any rapping for you here on the stream today, but yeah, I would consider covering Baby Got Back on Guitar. James the Media Master, what are some great 90s teams like Youngblood that I think have excellent writing? Well, I think you mentioned the Stormwatch compendium. I wish they would put out the first half of Stormwatch that came before this, the pre-Ellis, because that is extraordinary. If you've never read original Birds of Prey, I know Chuck Dixon has turned into a controversial character, but Birds of Prey is really, really fun just throughout, and but that's like a late 90s. Early, I mean, I like 90s trash because I like the weird toyetic, stodgy, extreme comics. So like, I even like stuff like Force Works, but I think the end of Avengers West Coast is pretty good. I'm trying to think if I'm trying to like pull for like a more obscure thing that like not everybody's going to mention. There's Secret Defenders from the 90s. Maybe if you've never read that you might, I don't think it's like amazing comic books. I think Infinity Watch is pretty interesting. Actually, it's kind of this idea that like, they're not really a team. They're just like lashed together because they've got to take care of the Infinity Stones. Although many of them eventually become the Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course I love Wildcats. I think the beginning of Wildcats is just notable because it's amazing Jim Lee art. But then I think when James Robinson and Alan Moore take over, it turns into a really intriguing comic book. I think Wildstorm comics were fantastic. I really, really love and rate Wildstorm. Tiger Eyes is here. The man, the myth, the legend, the tiger. Did I need help compiling new options for Marvel Most Wanted? Also, did I read Plastic Man by Chris Campbell? I did not read Plastic Man by Chris Campbell, although I usually like Chris Campbell. Tiger Eyes, I need to send you an email because we have a whole crew of minties who are reviewing all of the titles from last year. We caught all of the new options that were suggested by people in the poll last year. There were over 140 suggestions. We boiled them down. So right now there are minties working on it as I speak here on the stream. So I will have to send it to you so that you can give it your stamp of approval and consent before we get started. Reaper, do I think the Carrie Yost and Kyle Suzursky X-Men era hasn't been collected because it would be intertwined too much, or could it be collected by lines individually? There's a bunch of good ways to map it. I mean, they know how to do that. I think the thing is that for a while, it was too close for anybody to have nostalgia for. And I think they always want to put out an Omni that people are going to like be hot for. And I think for a while, there were other X-Men things that just people were hotter for. I think the 90s stuff just had so much more fan sentiment and nostalgia attached to it that of course people were going to demand and buy the 90s stuff more. I think now we're getting to a point that they're low on material enough, having covered Claremont 2 ways at this point. And the drumbeat of people who like that 2008 and 2010 period is heavy enough that I think we're finally going to see it happen next year if we vote for it on the omnibus poll. I think it'll be interesting to see how they do it, but there are ways. I don't think that it's so intertwined that you would have to collect it all together. You could collect X-Force and Cable as 2 separate books, or you could collect it together. You could collect post Second Coming X-Men as Uncanny and as Adjectiveless separately, or you could collect it together. I think given their strategy, they do not tend to like putting books with different titles together for big periods of book. Even in Spider-Man, they don't like doing that. So I would imagine that each of the X-Men books get collected separately. I don't think they need each other too much, except for, of course, during the 2 big crossovers, which are primarily Messiah Complex and Second Coming, because Messiah War is just between Cable and X-Force, and it's really only 3 extra issues into each omnibus, so it doesn't matter that they would double dip them. And Necrotia is not a crossover. You don't need the rest of Necrotia to read all of X-Force. So actually, I think it's not that intertwined. Reaper saying corpse is pronounced core. Yeah, but you're an Australian, so you say nar. How can we trust you? Okay. William Lee checking in relatively late. Lance McNair forgot all the hundreds of secondary characters' names in the Wheel of Time books. Constantly one wheel tracks catching up the stream. Storm 7 was fun, but for what it was billed as their 50th anniversary issue, it felt a bit empty, but it's fun to get non-Western deities. Perfectly said. I wish I just said that. Said it so much better than I did. If you don't, I don't have social medias. God bless you for that. How do you find out you're blocked? Because I think somebody else like retweeted Gail and commented on it, and then it was like blocked, and I was like blocked, and then or maybe I just went to her page. Like Gail's Twitter is funny. I used to recommend it to people all the time back in Twitter, and so I might have just like gone to her Twitter and been like blocked. Yeah, but I don't. You got to do the thing to protect you online. I block people who I'm sure are very nice people, but I block them because I am trying to not get angry about internet drama. So I want to be clear. I'm not upset that Gail blocked me. I just think it's funny that the reason I got blocked is that she name searched herself and got angry that somebody was saying they weren't even being mean, and they weren't saying anything near as bad as what I've said on the show. They were just saying, I don't really care for her writing on Uncanny X-Men. And she clearly name searched that person, blocked them, and then blocked everybody who liked it. I usually only block everybody who likes something if it's a transphobic thing. Otherwise, like I won't block everybody for just liking Phoenix. Like I won't block you for that. I'll only block if I think it's going to enhance my opinion. If I had to get rid of one Epic Collection line, oh no. Oh, that's hard. I mean, I would want to get rid of one. Now you get to see the back of my hair, which I haven't even seen yet today. I would want to get rid of one where it doesn't really matter that it exists. So I will take the easy answer and say Kill Raven, because there's only one book of it. However, I like that they did this. They should do this more often. There are a lot of characters that they could collect like one book of, and that would just be all of their stuff, and they should market it as an epic collection. And I get frustrated when they don't. They did like a Son of Satan classic. It should have been an epic. They could do a Tiger epic. That would be like a one and done epic. There's so many epics they could do to basically collect everything for a lot of 70s characters who were primarily team characters that had like one miniseries one time, like a Dr. Voodoo epic. How many did we eventually get a Dr. Voodoo Masterworks? I don't even remember, but I feel like a Dr. Voodoo epic line would only be 1 or 2. I think that would be smart. Okay, Logan Wayne, it cracks me up that she blocked me for. I don't want to get into. I'm happy it cracks you up. I'm not saying that you shouldn't say that. I don't have that much emotion tied to it. I don't want to like make it a big deal and then have somebody send her the video of me saying she blocked me. Like it's just not that big of a thing. Edu Lorena saying it could be a good idea to do Kickstarters for material they do not believe would sell. I'm sure they would be surprised if it's a success. Yeah, I think hopefully the G.I. Joe and the Transformers Kickstarters have like really opened some eyes at Marvel about the power of nostalgia for 80s stuff to like, you know, draw in a lot of people. And, you know, there's not a lot of Marvel properties that are Transformers level popular, you know? So it's not like they're just going to be able to take that to the bank the way this new Transformers Kickstarter has. There we go. So we'll see. But I think Kickstarter is a really interesting direct signal of like how popular things are, because it's like really people open up their wallets if they want it. Can't wait for that Vampirella guide. Me too. I want it because I want it. Like I need it. I look at the Vampirella stuff in DCBS sometimes and I'm like, I can't make heads or tails of this. I need a guide. I really hated ASM #1 scene where his girlfriend. Yeah, it was really confusing because it didn't really introduce the idea of her as his girlfriend. And then they were with like somebody else. Randy was like with a girl who he didn't really like. And then they were like joking about it. Just didn't really make a lot of sense. Yeah. Lauren Hill is in Logan Wayne's top 5 rappers ever. I love Lauren Hill. Love. There's my other Kiwi. Kia to Samantha Jane. Super late to the party. It's my birthday today. Happy birthday, Samantha Jane. So naturally I'm on a run. Yeah. I messed up my calf really bad. I ran 2 days back to back last week and I needed a rest day. And I think I need to go to the physio because my calf got so messed up. And I was like limping around the house afterwards. Derek Tyler, a fat Cable and X-Force 2 Volume 2 Omni would cover the rest of the era where both titles played off of each other. That is true. Just turning on my amp. There we go. Rebirth, also pronounced Australia. English is descriptive, not prescriptive. We know what you mean and understand because it doesn't matter how you're saying it. I only say core because I ask. I know. I'm just joking with you. I do think Kiwis have a very weird accent though. Okay. I think they need more one and done epics. Derek Tyler is agreeing. Okay. And Bailey, I did see your comment earlier. I talked so much about it. I went on a whole tangent about it. It was very, very much appreciated. And Bunkmaster B is listening in earbuds while grilling non-meat dinner for the family. Loves some grilled veggies. Okay, folks, I think we are going to move into the final remarks and the song and just enjoy that this is not 3 hours for once. So what else am I on this week? Well, I am on Near Mint tomorrow, apparently at 6 p.m. Because we're going to be announcing the reprint poll, and then in a few weeks we're going to be doing the Tiger Eyes poll for Marvel Omnibuses. So that is coming up. It is my Halloween / Easter / birthday / Mardi Gras. Is my favorite time of the year. I don't think I'm on anything else this week, although I could be mistaken. I know I said there was going to be a super secret stream last week, and then I didn't actually do it last week, partially because my calf got hurt so bad, and partially just because I was really busy with work stuff last week. I just didn't get the chance. Will there be a secret stream this week? Maybe. So go and hit the notification bell if you want to know about that. If you're not a member of the Patreon, it is really helpful. If you are, it does help pay for things, and it helps me be capable of things. And also, that's my way of knowing that I'm not just putting out poll noodles. So if you go to patreon.com/krisis and I respond to Patreon messages all the time, and you do have a say. Also, everybody on this stream next week will have a say over what one of my Patreon only guides becomes public. So if you have something you've really been wanting, please sing out. And also, if you're somebody who, like I did this for somebody the other week, if you just want to read some Red Hulk and you cannot afford the Patreon right now, and you're somebody who regularly watches the show, if you send me a message of like, Krisis, can I just have a PDF of the Red Hulk guide? I absolutely would give you a PDF of the Red Hulk guide. I don't have time to sell retail every guide to every possible person, but I don't put them behind a Patreon wall. People sometimes get, times that I've name searched, I've discovered people get really frustrated with me because they're like, oh, that site's all paywall now. Yeah, do you know why? Because the guides take 5 to 24 hours to make, and then to update them they take between 1 and 3 hours a year to keep each one of them updated. I just can't do that all for free. There's got to be an economy, and the economy for especially smaller guides, it's one thing to have like a Deadpool guide where like people are going to buy enough books from the Deadpool guide that I'm going to make some money on that guide. But when I do a guide that's like a little bit more obscure that people are really demanding, like the Ghost Machine guide, there's only so many books on that guide. That still took me 3 or 4 hours to do. I'm not going to make that money back from people buying books on the guide. So like I need, in order to be able to spend this egregious amount of time doing this, I need some of the guides to be profitable. And that's why the Patreon paywalled guides exist, because sometimes when I make a smaller guide that's not going to get a lot of traffic or have a lot of sales, I'm like, well, but somebody might pay $2 for that. In fact, 200 somebody's might pay $2 for that. But my point there is also, if you're a regular friend of the show and you need some help, I am always here to help you out. So I'm going to play a song now. Also, there's new releases posts. Oh, that's the other thing I've been doing. We've been taking a look at the new releases posts on Crushing Crisis to see what my top picks are going to be for the next week. So let's just do that real quick, and then we will play the song. So let's see. So next week, my image pick of the week is probably Rogue Sun. I just loved issue 25 of Rogue Sun so much that that is my image pick for this week. My DC pick of the week, I really went through it because I really wanted to pick Detective Comics. I really wanted to pick Challengers of the Unknown, but I ultimately went with Zatanna #3. Just so delightful and so gorgeous. And my Marvel pick of the week, again, I am completely uninspired with Marvel superhero comics right now. And so without picking a superhero comic, I had to pick The Legacy of Vader because I absolutely could not get excited about any of the superhero comics out from Marvel. All right, so now I'm going to do the thing where everything falls on the ground because I push this even farther away and I never think to clean up behind it first. And now we're going to play a song. So here's the thing. Many of the songs I've been playing for you so far have been either songs that are relatively new that I've been working on a lot recently, or like that Martian Manhunter song, which I constantly sing. I'm constantly singing it all the time and under my breath everywhere that I go in the world. Or they're songs that I know are already kind of like my greatest hits. Like they've been around forever. But something I I have maybe 40 of those. Like I have maybe 40 songs that I'm pretty confident that are pretty great and that I know that they'll probably sound good and I know how to play them really well. But then I have written over 400 songs, and I was going through, and it turns out that I probably could get to something like 150 episodes of this without repeating a song of songs I'm pretty confident in. But the thing is, some of them are old, like some of them are 20 years old, 25 years old at this point. Some of them are songs I've never played out before. And so I always, for me, I don't know which ones are the orange pool noodles. So I always tend to go with the songs that are pretty catchy and pretty obvious. And those are the ones that I've played out. If I only had a 3-song slot at an open mic, I would only want to choose those. I wouldn't want to choose anything that I wasn't super sure about. And if I only have time to record 2 or 3 songs for my website, I would try to record 2 or 3 songs that I thought were the really good ones. So a lot of what for me would be like the B-sides or the album cuts just never even exist for me because I don't usually pick them. So I'm going to try to start throwing in some of those, what to me are album cuts here, to get a chance to play them for you. And maybe you'll tell me one of them is actually awesome and it's something that I never knew about. So this is one of those album cuts. It is called Day 94. And actually it's kind of a country song. I wrote it in May of 2002, which is a long time ago. And at the time, that was not even a whole year after 9/11. And crossover country had not really turned into what it is now, where there's so many legitimate pop stars who are doing country. At the time, there had been like Faith Hill and stuff, but country was going through a super Americana kind of like proud to be an American phase. And so it was weird that I wrote this pop song that was clearly a country song. And I don't know how to write in the country idiom, so it's not very Nashville. It's not very, but to me, in my mind, it's a country song. So this is called Day 94, which I've probably not played to video or audio for a solid 20 years. I'm just reminding myself of some of the chords. Okay. Oh, by the way, I don't see your comments from this point forward, but I do, as we know, read all the comments, and I do actually respond in the comments on the actual video if there are chats that I missed. So I'm so sorry if you've chatted in the last 5 minutes and I haven't seen it. But this is Day 94. 6 a.m. is where I found myself alone, the sheets strewn to the other side of the bed, where the shape of your body loomed. And then while the sun rose, the sun shone on the calendar I've been keeping careful track. X marked off the day so far, 'cause we knew that it wouldn't last. You attempt to change that. You gave up on Day 94. You couldn't break all my bad habits, so I guess I'm alone in the end again, unless you come back for more. Unless you come back for more. The telephone is on the floor, buried under magazines I subscribe to, but neglected for you. Well, now they are no consolation with their glossy pages and their smiling faces. The company that keep me in, it's viciously silent, it's wickedly blue. And you attempt to change that. You gave up on Day 94. You couldn't break all my bad habits, so I guess I'm alone in the end again, unless you come back for more. Unless you come back for more. And it feels good to talk about it, and it feels good to say. It feels good right until I get up out of bed, and I wish that you had stayed. I wish that you had stayed. I wish that you had stayed. Stayed. I know when your alarm is set to ring at 8:32, and I can make a guess at the music it plays when you hit the snooze. 'Cause we were never early risers. The two of us spent long mornings in bed when we called out from work and slept in instead. But you attempt to change that. But you gave up on Day 94. You couldn't break all my bad habits, so I guess I'm alone in the end again, unless you come back for back for more. Unless you come back for more. Unless you come back for more. Unless you come back for more. 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 Will you come back for more? You won't come back for more, cause you left on day 94. Never did quite know how to end that one. So that is day 94. I've been Krisis. Thank you so much for hanging out. There were so many of you hanging out, so many of you commenting. I can't wait to go back and catch so many more comments that I didn't get to catch as I was talking. So we will be back next week with more of my responses to the huge pull list across the comic book industry. Until then, please, please, please give yourself a break from the world. Sometimes reading the news and responding to everything, responding to every social media post, responding to who you saw blocked you, sometimes that's not good for us. So make sure you take a little bit of time to just do the thing that's good for you this week, and make sure that you maybe try to contribute to doing a thing that is good for other people this week, because people in this world matter. Trans rights are human rights. Everybody needs to be treated with respect as long as they're giving that same respect out to the world. And I trust that everybody who would be here for this show are probably people who agree with me about that. So until next week, please don't have a crisis unless it's me, right? Then it's a good crisis to have, and I will see you for another one next week.